Hey guys, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi. I'm going to be going on to the table stuff in just a second. So you guys can ask me questions, and the table people can do what the table people do, and it will be a fine time had by all. So I hope you're having a good day. It's very hot in LA, and it's getting hotter. So golly gee whiz, we should have done something about the climate decades ago. But that's a political subject. You can watch me on my other channel, Mr. Politics, and hear me rant about that sort of stuff. So there we are. Okay, now let's see. I unmute, and this is the table, I guess. So I guess close, and then here's this, and let's see. So I guess Adam is there on the table one, correct, Adam? Are you there? Or maybe not. Maybe it's just about to start. We'll see. Hello, Adam. Is that you? Yes.
That's me.
Great. Well, we'll see if any of the other table people show up. That's interesting. I'm not used to having no one there. So I guess
that's odd.
I guess my sell by date has expired.
So you're early. That's all.
I guess I'm passé. People have moved on to Mr. Sci-Fi 2. Hello, Dave. Hi, right. Dave Edison is here. Hello, Dave, and hello,
Tried
Mr. Sci-Fi audience.
Dave Edison.
Yeah, I haven't seen the 102 you were going to be sending. I guess that hasn't been sent yet. Ha ha ha. That's very funny. Yes, I get it. Dave, you're just So, but here we are. We're all together once again. So you're.
I got that shot closer that you wanted.
Good.
That headshot of Dorf. So.
Good. So thank you, Earl F. Smith, for saying nice haircut. Yes.
Yeah.
It's it all works out. Hello, how are you doing? There, Solomon Twigs. So okay, great. So so Adam, why don't we start with you since you're here, and we'll go from there. Hello, Jennifer. Hi.
Now people are coming on.
Okay, we got some people. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So okay. So go for it, Adam.
Yeah. Hi, guys, especially you new folks. I'm Adam Sartain, actor, voice actor, musician, and I am an associate producer on Space Command. Yay! So last week was very fun. I got to be in a Zoom play of Animal Farm.
How
so
fun.
That worked out very well.
Great.
Rave reviews. We had lots of people tuning in, and it worked out great.
Wow, cool.
And then a buddy of mine has a bunch of projects on the horizon, including the restart of a web series I was in called Everybody Loves Luigi.
What's the name?
Based on the Mario Brothers. But so that's great. And then he's also he has a kind of superhero-ish movie, superhero samurai /
cool.
Type movie that he's casting and working on. So that's fun.
Great.
And then I just got cast in a it's going to be like a radio play type thing with zombies, and
Doesn't get
basically
better.
Zombies hit Los Angeles, and there's these radio DJs that are dealing with it.
Great, that's
so
great.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's about it for me right now.
Okay, there's nothing you need right now.
Always keeping my eyes and ears open for new voiceover and acting jobs, but yeah. Other than that,
okay.
I'm doing good.
Great, 3 cheers, yay! So Adam, I saw that there was a Mr. Sci-Fi question. If you want to read it,
is there?
Yeah, under Hayes 494.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hayes 494 says, "Hi, Mr. Sci-Fi. Do you know why Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis keep referring to DS9 as Deep Throat 9? They always say it at conventions and interviews."
Yeah, it's their attempt at something called humor. I think there's a competitiveness between the different casts of different Star Trek series. And I think that that's their way of kind of like taking a little playful dig at the other show, because Star Trek: The Next Generation was sort of the big ratings powerhouse, and I don't think Voyager or DS9 or Enterprise equaled them in terms of viewership, as far as I know. And so that's probably their way of just kind of being assholes. And so, I mean, in quotes.
That's what they do when they're
quotes.
jealous,
Yeah, but they're both really nice people. Marina Sirtis has actually shot at Space Command Studios, and I know Jonathan Frakes and have known him for many years. So, but it's just humor. I mean, see, the thing is, I mean, when you go to all these conventions year after year after year, and you've told the same anecdotes over and over and over again, how do you keep it entertaining and fresh for yourself? And that's the big challenge. Now, thank God for Picard and Star Trek Discovery and so forth, because it at least gives everyone something new to talk about, and that's not a bad thing. So, and of course, Frakes and Marina Sirtis were in Picard last season, and they were both quite good in it as well. So so that's what that's about. So
it's like me referring to USC as the University of Spoiled Children.
Yes. Though in that case, it's not a joke. It's accurate. totally accurate. So yeah. So but I went to UCLA, so that might be why I have that opinion. So, but okay, great. So so Solomon, I see you up there. If you want to introduce yourself and unmute and there you go.
Hi everybody. I'm Solomon J. Twiggs. I am a consummate scribe, story analyst, lifelong animation adherent.
Great.
And as of August, I am the founder and chief creative of a new entertainment enterprise called Bifrost Creative Ventures.
Cool.
Our long-term work is going to be multimedia analysis and production. In my capacity as a story analyst, I offer reading through that organization. But I ultimately founded it because given everything that's going on in the world, there's a lot of need for more opportunities and a lot of different industry. And I see the creative industries as an industry that is conducive to being able to go on working in this environment, especially since I want to push into gaming and animation. Those are two things that people can do remotely, safely, and still make good money doing it. So
cool.
I eventually want to get to the point of producing in that vein. Yeah. But to get to what I need, the first and main thing I need is to learn the email process for this group again.
Yes. And David Bartlett, who's just signed on, he can guide you through that. He's sort of that's his task in life. So he has really nothing else to do. But yeah, so he can help you with that. And and when you say you're an animation fan, what kind of animation do you like?
So in the modern day, I mostly watch a lot of anime, like My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer.
Sure.
I'm rewatching the works of Studio Ghibli, so I just recently watched Tale of Princess Kaguya and Princess Mononoke.
Right.
But I also really like Adventure Time, Summer Camp Island. Sure. What else? Oh, Castlevania is probably like one of the best that they have coming out of the West.
And when you were a kid, what did you like?
Dragon Ball Z, Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Cool.
Anything pretty much on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, like Ed, Edd and Eddy, Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, all that stuff.
Good, cool. So is there anything you need right now other than the getting the table email up and running?
Yes. Another thing, I am definitely looking, I think, to talk to a marketing consultant. I still am in the process of getting the business off the ground, and I really don't want it to be weakened by my limitations.
Yes.
As a marketer,
sure.
I recognize that I am really strong as an analyst and as a reader. I know my stuff in terms of what makes a good story, but in terms of selling things, I have trouble there. So I wouldn't mind being able to talk to somebody about seeing if hiring somebody for that.
Good. And also another way you can do that is reverse engineer. So you find what company or what entity has the kind of penetration and marketing that you want, and then you kind of contact them and you talk to their guy who's in charge of that and say, is there a way to hire you, or is there someone you can recommend, or blah blah blah. And so because there are a lot of people in those arenas that are frauds and will just burn through your money and not actually accomplish anything. And yeah.
Did you hear how the Chicken Soup for the Soul people got their PR person?
Well,
No.
Chicken Soup for the Soul is a series of books that was very, very successful, and most grandmothers, I guess, in the world have one or two of their books. So, but yes, go ahead, Elaine.
Well, they saw that there were two. There was advertising for one company.
It was Deepak Chopra. One of them was in somewhere like Bangkok. There was these two authors. One that was in Bangkok. The other was somewhere like Vegas. And on the same day, in the local papers in both places, there was an article on Deepak Chopra. And they said, well, whoever that guy's press agent is should be our press agent. And so they contacted the guy, and he became their press agent. And that's really what put them on the world stage.
Because that's the problem with a lot of people who advertise themselves as advertising people.
Mm-hmm.
They advertise to the people who bring them on,
Yes.
but they're not very good at advertising the people that bring them on to the rest of the world.
Yes.
So I found a lot. We've had a lot of unfortunate experiences with people who didn't quite have the skills that we were paying for.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that's where it's really good to say, okay, where do I see publicity that catches my attention? So you backward engineer it, because doing it the other way hasn't worked for us very well.
Mm.
But if you backward engineer it, when you say, oh, this person has the contacts that I see using my stuff, they can get to the, whatever organ of, publicity that you want it to get to, the Times or whatever. And you say, okay, they've got contacts where they can place articles there. I'll go after them. So have a look and see what catches your eye, and then price them out and see if you can get hold of them. But it's much better to backward engineer, because there's a lot of people out there, and it's easy to get burned by those guys.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, obviously I need content to read. So once I finally get the email worked out, I'll send you guys like the link to the website and everything, and anyone who's interested to look around.
Great.
The free assessment is free, so like I can talk to you about what you might need in advance of actually reading the stuff.
Cool.
Okay,
That's great. Well, 3 cheers. Yay.
Thanks, everybody.
And David Bartlett.
Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, yeah. David Bartlett can be your conduit. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
There is. Our
Yes.
next question is actually for Elaine.
Uh-oh, look
Oh
out.
my God.
And it's from Mark Lungo,
Hi, Mark.
who asks, Mark has many books, toys, and other collectibles.
I don't know where he gets that
What
from.
kind of collectibles do you have, Elaine?
Not as many. Not as many.
For a while, we had a robot collection, a toy robot collection that was
Yeah,
Elaine's
that
many
was.
years ago.
Because when I was a little girl, and I said, "Oh, Mom, I want robots," and she said, "No, that's a boy thing," and that was incorrect. I wanted my robots. So when I got older, I got two things. I got a robot collection and a Saint Bernard. Things I've been wanting. But in terms of collectibles, I spent a lot of time just, I wanted to see the world, and live in the broader world the way people did in books. And so I spent a lot of time traveling, and therefore I had to live kind of light. And so if you ask me what would I like as a present, it would be an experience. Even if it's miniature golf, I prefer experience to stuff, because stuff, I like stuff, but it kind of weighs you down.
Yeah. So there you go. Great answer. So
also, I should mention that we have a super chat.
Great.
From Michael Antonsiu.
Okay,
I can't,
great.
But from St. Paul, Minnesota. So I want to shout out to them.
Yay.
Donated a couple bucks. So
Yeah, well,
great,
money
thank
is
you.
gratefully accepted. So terrific. So Elaine's going to take the
I
dogs
have to,
down.
My dog is pawing me.
Hi, dog.
I shall be back as soon as allowed.
Yes, she'll be back
I'll
shortly.
try and hustle her around the
Yes,
block.
well, both of them, the two
Yes,
dogs.
both of them.
Okay, great. So, so Jennifer, you were here fairly early. So why don't you take your turn?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a recent graduate of film school in England, and I'm kind of same as what I said last week. Just looking for any opportunities for editing or like production assistant opportunities or anything really.
Great, terrific. Well, I don't know if you and David Bartlett have talked yet, but definitely our studio has needs of those things. And so definitely there's a conversation to be had. I don't know if
Yeah, it's interesting because I just got a call from another table member, James Kinnear, who's doing a production right now.
Huh, wow.
And he's looking for paid production assistance on a network reality show that starts like this morning.
Wow.
So you could definitely contact him, but you could also definitely contact me because we have some volunteer and both paid positions too, especially if you have a car. You have a car?
I don't right now.
And where
That's okay.
are
We
you
can
here?
still work it out, but when I take my turn, I'll talk more about it. But
Great.
definitely get in touch with me.
And Jennifer, are you here in LA or where are you?
Yeah, I'm kind of near Calabasas.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Not having a car is a little challenging if you're out near Calabasas, so but we
There's
can.
virtual assistance.
There's virtual assistance. Yes, there is that.
And we need that too.
Well, and David's very good with that kind of stuff. People who are long distance. One of our assistants is in the Dominican Republic, and yet she's working out perfectly fine. She was here for a while as well. So, but great.
Our head of crowdfunding is in Bolivia.
Yeah.
And the European director in UK. I mean, we've got people all over the country and the world.
Yeah. So that's great. So anything else, Jennifer?
Oh, I just wanted to say that last week after the meeting, I made like a new email address with like my full name and everything, and
Great.
I sent you an email, David, but I'm not sure if it may have ended up in your.
Oh no.
Doesn't think so.
Yeah, the dog's just knocked over the lamp. That's violent
Send me
gas.
another one right now, and I'll check it while we're on this. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
I'll resend the one from last
That's
time.
great.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, 3 cheers. Thank you, Jennifer. Good. Okay, great. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have a question. A very good question from Rose Kirby.
Hello, Rose.
Joining us from jolly old England.
Yes.
Her question is, if the world was ending and you could watch one last film, what would it be and why?
Huh. That's interesting. I probably wouldn't be watching a film. I'd probably be trying to figure out how to survive. But in lieu of that, it might be Blade Runner. It might be Aliens. It might be 2001: A Space Odyssey. Or I might just let Elaine watch one of her favorite movies, and we'd end up watching, some Pixar movie or Zootopia or something. So, or Love Actually. But so that would be sort of the list, But yeah, but we'll see. Hopefully, the world won't be ending too soon, but we'll know in November. So, not to be political. Okay. So let's see. Now, Dave Edison. Dave, hi, Dave. You were pretty early on, so go for it.
Hello. I'm looking up here because I'm working on Space Command. So
Great, yay, as you should be.
yeah, 24/7.
Yay.
Well, it was 16:6.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi. I'm an editor. I'm editing Space Command. I don't recommend it. Either of those things. Seriously, I enjoy editing, but I really wish I had made another career goal. I don't know what it would have been. Actually, the first thing I tried led me to editing, and that was stand-up comedy. And 22 years of that was enough for me and the audience. And so anyway, working on this, we've got some little VFX shots that we're trying to tweak out that we can see if we can handle here in-house rather than sending them out to VFX specialists, which I am not. And I'm just trying to get this version of the second episode ready so that I can send it to Mark so he can take make some notes and take a look at it and see if we've gotten anything right or close enough. And that's about it. I got my book back here, which is The Man with the List, a picture book for grown-ups who can't believe in the unbelievable. And if you go to YouTube and punch in Man List Picture, the animated version will come up, so I'll read it to you in this melodious voice.
Cool.
And other than that, there's probably other things going on. I got a cup of Bigelow tea. How bad could life be?
Yes.
So just trying to survive, and as you say, hopefully hopefully survive November
Yes, and Dave, I also
and beyond if things change.
And as you know, Dave, I put the animated version of your book on Mr. Sci-Fi as well, so people can find it there too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and it's really, really fun. So yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for saying so.
Anyway,
I hope everybody and you and yours are staying safe. I have a friend who I guess it's over the weekend reported on Facebook that he had gotten himself a little case of the bubons.
Oh wow!
The bubons 19, and had a couple of rough days, but is in the hospital and recovering, and they're going to send him home soon, and I hope that'll be okay for his wife and kids.
Yes.
So anyway, for those of you who or who have friends who think it's a hoax, you know what? It ain't.
Yeah.
I just have to just bite my tongue with some people on Facebook. But anyway, point being, stay safe, and hope to see you in person sooner than later.
Yay! Thank you, Dave. Now, one thing unrelated to COVID, I just found out, I think it was night before, that Susan Ellison, Harlan Ellison's widow, just passed away, and that was a big shock because she was only 60. And so I've been reaching out to people who were mutual friends of ours to find out if they have any more information about that. She was a very dear soul. And in fact, there's a picture of Harlan and Susan on the wall behind me. Let's see if I can angle this. Yeah, there's the portrait I drew of Harlan that he used on his website. And then next to that is a photo of Harlan and Susan. She was really, really a great person, so I felt very bad about that.
I suppose you'd have to be a very, very interesting person to be able to navigate the Harlan waters on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, I knew Harlan when he was sort of this, dashing young man who was burning through relationship after relationship and spoke very derogatorily of women in general. And then he met Susan, and she was just funny and smart and really loved him and didn't take any bullshit at all from him. And they were together for something like 30 years. And she was the perfect match for him. And he became gentler in certain ways. He became a better person in certain ways. He was still Harlan, of course. And of course, my line about Harlan is that Harlan Ellison, burned his bridges while he was on them. So he was a very famous science fiction writer who was extremely, extremely temperamental. So, but he wrote City on the Edge of Forever, which is a great Star Trek episode, and wrote many books and essays and short stories and tons of stuff. So quite an amazing man. So, okay, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. There's a big one, but then I want to do this one first because timely.
Sure.
Because you were just talking about Susan.
Yes.
Mark Lungo wants to know do you know what Susan died from?
Not yet. No, she died in her sleep. But I've emailed Neil Gaiman's right-hand person and so forth to see if I can find out. And but I haven't. And I asked Rockne O'Bannon, but he didn't know. So but I was very, very stunned, and it was a shame because I was actually wanting to develop something of Harlan's for the Showrunners Network, and now I have to find out who's overseeing Harlan's estate, if anyone. I'm sure there is someone, but yeah. So why don't we go to you, Judith? You're on my screen. Can you unmute? Let's see. Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. You haven't unmuted. Let's see. Oops. There you go.
Me?
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
One of the few times in this lifetime that you can't hear me.
Yes.
I'm a little tired. I was up all night with my cat. She's got a lump on her stomach.
Oh dear.
So I got to go to the vet tomorrow. Well, it's been an interesting couple weeks. The great mattress quest. I ran around in the heat in 108-degree weather. When I run around, it means I'm taking 2 or 3 buses and walking.
Wow.
Because I don't drive, so it's exhausting. In any case, I had lunch with Billy yesterday. He looked over my script, liked it. May want to help me develop it.
And who's Billy?
Oh, I'm so sorry. My cousin Billy Reback wrote, produced, and directed Home Improvement, which is still running, and also The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. For Disney. So I'm going to be doing my demo in 2 weeks, 13 days.
Great.
With Scotty Baker and Karen Clay, so I'm excited. That's finally happening. Finally! And I got my demo, my voiceover demo done, and I'm going to hit everybody up, Adam, to market myself, because I'm good. And then I'm going to do my animation demo and start writing again.
Cool.
But in the meantime, this demo, I forgot how much production entails.
Yes.
You know, whether you're doing it 2 people. Here, I used to do this in New York. Why should I be surprised? Anyway, so that's the big news of the day. I'm getting the house ready and the mattress. I had to get a new one. And don't anybody buy from Fit and Sleep, ever. They're gunners. They're real guns. That means Steve. That's about it, really. The big news is the demo. I'm just really, really excited about it.
Great.
You know, and that's about it. I think my manager is going to direct me over Zoom. And woohoo!
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Congratulations. One thing I was going to mention, Judith, is you noted that you didn't have a car, and I thought because Jennifer also doesn't have a car, the two of you could get together and fail to carpool together. It's really not
I
a
know listen, I know the buses in this city.
Yeah.
Like nobody else.
Right.
I know what time they go. I know what
it's a
time
nightmare.
they come. It's a pain in the
Yeah,
ass.
no. I mean, anyone who's ever lived in a city with a good transit system like New York or London, LA is just a nightmare in terms of trying.
It's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, it is. It is, but still,
It's a lot better than it used to be.
you really have to have.
What choice do I
Yeah.
have, Mark? I can't drive it because of this damn lead.
You always give me a call. I have a car.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Who's
Or
that? Who's that?
that's Adam.
Me.
That's Adam.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Adam.
access.
Yeah.
access.
Oh, yeah,
And I
that's true.
charge way less than Uber and Lyft do.
Well, there you go. There you go.
But you're all
And
the way down. I don't like to bother people.
I-
But Mike, I'm going to need something from you for my next demo. I'm going to need a gun. I'm going to need a gun.
Okay. Okay. That's
Actually,
Let me know what kind.
sure.
it's on the side here for I'm going to be doing a demo with Tom. I got to get some more money together, especially since I have to take my cat to the vet. You know, oh, poor baby. Everybody, please keep your fingers crossed.
Sure.
She's 16. I've had her since she was. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, for my demo with Tom, and a badge.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you when the time comes.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Judith. Yay! Three cheers, Judith. So, is there another
And
Mr.
then it goes to Dave.
Oh, I thought you were
Then it goes
done.
to Dave.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
more. No, go ahead. What were you going to say,
No,
Judith?
then the demo goes to Dave.
Ah,
I'll
okay.
let you know what's going on after.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Judith. So, is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. We have a question from Carrie Richardson,
Hi, Carrie.
who says, just found your channel and enjoy
Yay.
episode 1 of Space Command.
Yes.
I've also found Star Trek fan movies.
Oh, good.
How are your films funded? What are the costs? And are these released for free?
Let's see where to start. Well, on Mr. Sci-Fi, you can watch the Star Trek film that I did with George Takei called World Enough in Time. It also stars Christina Moses, who's on A Million Little Things now on ABC. And it had Janice Rand. So it had Grace Lee Whitney. It had the computer voice provided by Majel Barrett, which I think was the last time she ever played that role, because she died not long after. So you can watch that there. Very proud of it. It was nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula Awards, won the TV Guide Award. That was funded primarily, the fans kind of put in money or worked for free on it. Additionally, I had an investor who gave me $100,000, and I put about $60,000 into editing and all of that to get it the way I wanted it. And because I had final cut on it, I directed it and co-wrote it and executive produced it. And so the Star Trek fan films, usually they would cost, there's 2 different series, Star Trek Continues and Star Trek New Voyages / Phase 2. Both of them have stopped production because of Paramount's new rules. They usually cost around $50,000 to maybe $100,000 per episode, and that was financed through the fans. Space Command is a different animal. I own it. I don't have to listen to Paramount or any other corporate entity. And so far, it's been funded by two ways: Kickstarter campaigns and selling investment shares in Space Command for $7,500. But at the same time, we're pitching it to Amazon and Netflix and all those guys. So we'll see what happens. It's a 14-hour first season. There's 3 hours of the show available on Mr. Sci-Fi Now, plus a radio play prequel and an animatic of that. Here's Elaine again. Hi, Elaine. So that's sort of, I guess, the answer. And but I'm always open to other ways of financing. So if someone wants to, send me a check of sizable amounts, that's fine too. So, and I can be reached at markzickery@gmail.com. So that's how we do things. So let's see. I guess David Bartlett, do you want to take your turn or? Uh-oh, look out. Technical difficulties. We can't hear you. Uh-oh, oh no. Yes.
You're muted, Dave.
Yeah.
Sound designer.
He's trying to make it work. Nope, we can't. There you go.
I got that joke. It's very funny.
Ha ha ha
I
ha.
wasn't muted. I was just putting in aliens.
There you go.
The DVD player totally obliterated my screen.
There you go.
Sure. My name is David Bartlett. I'm a filmmaker, a teacher and a human rights activist, and the co-producer of Space Command.
Yay!
Also the visual effects producer, the crowdfunding, I guess, producer, the whatever else you want to talk about Space Command, I'm involved in somehow.
Great.
I also do the color correction. I'm doing some of the sets too, which is cool. Let me turn this off because it's making noise. Okay, so my background is I made my first film when I was 10 years old. The story is 30 seconds long. The story is the oldest actor is 9 years old. The story is Frankenstein and the Wolfman get in a fight. The Dracula wakes up out of her coffin, female Dracula. She's was even thinking forward in those days. And she gets up, she comes over, she stops the fight, she puts on a record, and everyone dances. So that's the story of the films that I make to this day, more or less, are basically, I got it. There's a lot of trouble in the Middle East and whatnot, and you just put a record on. It's a little hard to shoot people when you're dancing. So,
by the way, David, are you actually in this epic?
Not this one, no.
Oh, you weren't, huh?
Nope, I wasn't in this one. I've been in other epics, but not that one. So I made more films when I was in high school. I did a lot of musicals and plays. I did a lot of movie theater managing, and I was a projectionist. I managed the theater that Star Trek the Motion Picture played in. And I moved to LA when I was 21, and I started working on. The first film I was ever on was the biggest film being shot at the time. The biggest budget film at that time was $40 million. It was Heaven's Gate, and also other films, one called Honky Tonk Freeway, and the other one was called Raise the Titanic. And all three of those films colossally collapsed. And I worked on a film called Under the Rainbow, which was with Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher and 50 Midgets and Dwarfs, which is what they were called at the time. And other people too, and that was my first film I was ever on. So that was very exciting. And then I got on the set as a directing intern with the director of Star Trek the Motion Picture, Robert Wise. So my career launched pretty strong right at the beginning, and it didn't really slack off since then. I was working with Roger Corman Studios and New World Pictures with a production designer, Jim Cameron, and his fiancee at the time, Gaylan Hurd. And I was doing all sorts of independent films and student films. And I got a job doing sound editing. That worked out really well. And I worked at a company where I did Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and Predator 2 and Tremors and all sorts of lots of fun films doing that. So then I got out of doing that, and I started working in independent films, producing and directing and writing, and also cinematography and editing. And now I have 64 Film Festival awards. So somewhere along the line there, this pesky television program came along called Space Command.
Yay!
And built my life. I'm completely consumed.
It's good.
That's all I do and think about.
Great.
Pretty much.
As it should be. As it should be.
With that said, I'm always looking for people to help. There are volunteer positions. You can volunteer and come along, and you can experience some of the teaching part of my life that I love, because I love to pass things on to people, sometimes whether they like it or not, but usually it's welcomed. And I'm very particularly fond of taking talented people and having them move up to the next level they want to reach. I never got much help doing that myself, but I was able to do it, pretty regularly. And there's a technique to it that you can employ, and I can help you with that too. So if you want a paid position, Space Command has a few of those. Don't start buying your house yet, but you can work and get paid. You can also work volunteering. You can work virtually without actually going to the studio, although going to the studio is a much better way to help you right now, because we're building sets that we're going to be filming on in a couple of weeks. So we're going to need people for the shoots too. Everyone from PAs to, art department people and others. So I've got all kinds of needs in those areas. I think that about covers it. Without talking about the table email, I can do that too. So I'm going to put my email on the chat here so you guys can reach me if you need to. I get a little behind sometimes with the table emails, but I'm getting caught up now. In fact, I think almost everyone's caught up, at least getting through the process, because I have to give it to other people for approvals, and then it comes back. It's not a screening process exactly, but it goes through steps. With the COVID now, everything is delayed, of course. This is no exception. So the table email goes, if you want to get on the table email has over 2,000 people on it right now. And you can go on this, and there's a database, and you can put yourself out there, explain to people what you're up to, tell them if you need something like, you need a PA on a set or whatever. And they will call you back too, and you can use it for networking. This is a very powerful thing. Mark and Elaine and I use it for Space Command all the time. I'm always putting names out there, looking for computers, looking for set people, whatever it is, and we always get things back. So this is a good, powerful tool for y'all. So all you have to do is give me your email name. Your email has to have your first and last name in it full. It can't have only nicknames. You can have other numbers and characters with it, but you need your first and last name. You send me that, and I'll put it through, and then you'll get on the table email and get an invitation, and that's how that works. So it's going to work even for Jennifer Biederman, who's been very patient with me. It's going to work for her too.
Cool.
So James Kinnear, another table member, is needing PAs right now. It's a paid position. It pays, where did that go? $210 a day for a 12-hour day. And he needs many PAs apparently. There are something like 60 people on this crew. And they need COVID people to back them up and everything. It's a very big shoot that's happening right now. So I can put his email up too as well if you're interested in that, or you know anybody else that is. You can pass it on to them as well.
Great.
So you can help me, you can help him, you can get involved. So I think that's about it.
Okay.
I don't have much to say else about myself other than the Space Command world is really moving forward nicely. And we're very close to shooting some more. And we're going to get this tooled up properly so we have the right amount of cash flow available to be shooting once a week on the weekends for 8 weeks. So there's time for people to come in and volunteer with that as well. And also, like I said, have a paid position. And during the week, we do the prep and the building of the sets. So the studio's almost finished, and we've got many sets already underway, and some of them are painted today. It was a big step today. I chose the color of the walls and of the set pieces we're painting.
Cool.
This is a major operation. And everything is white, so you think, what's the big deal? There are something like 45 shades of white at Lowe's alone. Okay, so it's a very selective process, and I think we just got through it today. So
great.
There you go.
That's terrific. Yay! Three cheers.
We might tell our membership the reason for needing a first and last name were that in the early days we had some challenges with people who were difficult to identify, who were inappropriate in various ways.
Yes.
And so we, especially with the female members, but we just wanted to protect all of our
protecting the female
protecting
members.
the members. But we just wanted to make anyone who was on the email list feel comfortable with, representing who they were. So that's that's the reason.
We changed the rules, and I had to make my own email too. And I'm not exempt either. No one's exempt. We all had to do it. Yeah. So it's really a safety thing and a way to keep track of each other too.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay.
Three cheers. And also, we were mentioning Harlan Ellison a moment ago. This is a book I just got. I'll put that thing up here. It's a biography of Harlan that came out just recently. It was completed before Harlan's death, but it looks to be a very, very good book. I've just started going through it, and if anyone who's interested in Harlan probably should check that out. So, okay, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
There certainly is. We have Kevin Scott 76, who asks, have you seen or do you watch Star Trek Lower Decks? And if so, what do you think about it?
I haven't gotten around to that one yet. I saw the commercials for it. I'm sort of getting to kind of Star Trek burnout a little bit, just because it's so time consuming to watch these shows, and I really have not gotten the kind of entertainment I'd like to have gotten out of Picard or Discovery. But I will check them out. It's sort of like but as David mentioned, we're very, very busy with Space Command now, and also all the other shows and books we're doing and all that stuff. So, but we'll see. Also, just a little side note, I'm always, looking for like cool things that aren't very expensive, and I just bought off of eBay a spacesuit. It doesn't include the helmet, but it's a spacesuit that was originally made for Men into Space in 1959, a TV show, and then it was used on an episode of Twilight Zone called Death Ship with Jack Klugman and Ross Martin, and used in a number of Outer Limits episodes. And then also was used in Bob Hope specials and Lucille Ball specials and all sorts of stuff. But it's really cool, and it's winging its way to me now. So it's interesting because they also have the space helmet, but I couldn't afford that because the space helmet, as opposed to the space suit, was used in the cantina scene in Star Wars, and that really knocked it out of sane pricing. So, but just kind of fun stuff. So. So that I think that takes up that takes the number of spacesuits that we have at hand to 9 from various productions, including the ones that are behind me. So so pretty fun. So okay, great. So
I need to step away for a second.
Okay.
But I will be back.
Sure.
Go ahead and skip until I get back.
Okay, great. So Mike, I guess you're the next one on my screen. So do you want to go for it, Mike?
Is that me?
Yes.
That's you.
Hey.
Indeed.
Hi, everybody. Mike Lopez. I am a retired cop turned independent filmmaker. So I use a lot of my experiences to make short films. Happy to see everybody. I'm starting a gun running business, so if anybody needs any guns, let me know. I can get you a good deal on some really nice hardware.
I'd be careful, Mike. The government's listening. So, but okay.
The government listens on me anyway, so okay, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I do have facsimile weapons and stuff like
Yes.
that. So if you have a project that has some kind of a police element, weapons or hand-to-hand or uniforms or batons, anything like that, body armor, or just, how does a cop think? Let me know. I can help you out. I've helped other people out. Elaine, for one.
Yes, he was great. I asked him to help me meet some very difficult challenges in a hand-to-hand between brothers, and he made something that I didn't think could happen possible. So it was great.
That's fun. That's fun.
And right now, I finished filming my most recent project called Professor Echo and the Spy Queen. It's based on a play that Jim Metropole wrote. But I'm having a lot of problem with the editing. For some reason, when I try to type graphic cards, you can't see the text to edit it and shape it and move it around. So I don't know what to do. I've tried just about everything. I even called Dave, believe it or not, as a last resort. I figure, if all else fails, I'll call St. Dave.
Let's ask somebody else with those from your park.
Well, I did ask Mark Gushewitz too.
What did he say?
He actually sent me his project, and it opened up fine on my computer with no issues. So it's maybe something on his computer.
Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Well, it may be your equipment. It's this stuff moves very, very quickly, and I had an older computer. I mean, it gets old fast, but there were a lot of things that I had to they were just like files that I had to have Mark translate for me to put on the older computer. The older computer could handle less and less and less. So it could be your equipment, because when it moves, And I was just really stuck for a lot of programs. My computer would not handle it. I finally had to get something else.
Mike, have you considered taking it personally?
I always take things personally, Dave. You should know that by now.
I made a couple of suggestions to him, like he could start a new project, see if the text works in that project, and then import this one in and see what happens. But he's got a second computer, so I told him to see if he can open it on that computer, because if it opens on that computer, then it's most likely the computer that's having issues.
I mean, if all else fails, I'll just throw the project out and start from scratch.
You shouldn't do that.
No.
I did it one time.
No, just
tell me about it. Reconstructing your film is not the easiest thing in the world to do, but very time consuming.
Well, when I've been really stuck, good old Dave Edison had me point my phone at my computer screen, and he was able to walk me through it that way because I got so lost. But sometimes, it's like sometimes the computer reacts correctly. In that case, he got it to work correctly. But sometimes it just, I think you should really look toward looking at other computers. Don't throw it away. Don't throw your art away. Look toward the electronics.
All right. Well, in the end, I was always thinking it's just a box I didn't check. So I don't know. Other than that, as far as filming goes, I can hardly wait to finish this because I got one more project I want to finish by the end of the year, which is going to be my pet project. That's the one I really want to do. It's about it's based on a true story. Retired cop helps a transgender woman regain her self-respect. So that one I'd like to enter in some festivals, and see what happens with it. Other than that, I have been thinking about doing one thing. I don't know if I should or not, because it is kind of a sensitive subject, and maybe I just throw it out and see what everybody says.
Sure.
A lot of things have been going on with protesting at night, and blocking roads and stuff like that, and people getting trapped and not knowing what to do when they find themselves in a situation where maybe their vehicle is surrounded. So I was thinking of maybe putting together some of my experience and knowledge about how to defend yourself and take care of yourself, and what you can do to prevent injury and death to yourself or the protesters. Again, maybe putting a booklet together, something like that.
It's possible, Mike, but it's by the time you get done, maybe things will be in a better place. Let's hope. But yeah, I mean, whatever you I mean, anything that helps people not resort to violence or not resort to harming other people is a good thing, of course. Because it's a very challenging time for a lot of people on all spectrums of the political equation. So, I
mean, there's circumstances, unfortunately, that have made people afraid of each other.
Yeah.
Who shouldn't be afraid of each other.
Yes.
Well, fear freezes you, and when you're afraid, you don't know what to do.
Yes.
If people at least have an idea about what they can do, maybe it would prevent an escalation of
yes.
problems. I don't know. I was thinking of doing that.
Well, you can talk to Elaine off camera, and I'm sure she'll have wisdom in this area. Elaine's smarter than I am, as we all know.
Well, I don't have. When I was in Israel, there was one of the volunteers was a very, very, very Christian.
When you lived
fellow.
in Israel.
When I lived in Israel. Yeah. There was a fellow among the volunteers who was a very, very religious fellow, very kind of laid back, small guy, light and so easygoing. Yeah. And he went into an extremely dangerous area, and he came back, and there were some thugs who had surrounded him and threatened him. And this is what happened. He said, we just started to talk, and then we went out for a drink. And it was like, well, what did you say? He said, no, we just started to talk. And it's like, how did he diffuse the situation? We never learned. But he was a very young man of such faith, which I'm not. I'm not actually not a young man, but I don't have that kind of faith. But he just had this aura of absolute belief in connection. And he was extremely Christian without being inflated about it. And he simply talked to these guys, and I don't know how, but they all ended up having a drink together and having a lovely time. And he never explained why, because these were known violent people. But I just wish we all had his gift.
Well, yeah, but
certainly that is the goal of any confrontation.
Yes, to go drinking. So okay, great. Well, thanks. Anything else, Mike?
And, how is your speaking of young men? How is your roomie?
Oh, he's actually doing very well.
Good.
We get along really well. Like I told you, he's like my dad to me. I really like the guy.
That's
Jim
great.
Metrobol,
Yes.
longtime table member, rock and roll photographer. He's got quite a few stories to tell. That I get to hear all of them.
That's cool. That's great.
I mean, we've got no one else to talk to right now, so we talk to each other.
That's great. That's great.
Our best.
But he's doing very well, very healthy. And the one thing that never was affected by his stroke was his appetite.
That's good. That's good.
He's got a good appetite.
Oh, great.
Other than that, when something comes up, I'll let you know if I need anything else.
Great.
Like I said, if you need any help with your project, if I can do it, I will. And I'm here just to love and support everybody.
Okay, yeah.
Great. Yay. 3 cheers. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Oh, you're back.
Yes, and I am back.
Yes.
There's a question from Rose Kirby.
Yes, Rose.
She asks, is there going to be updates on Mr. Sci-Fi on like the Kickstarter things as we finish, like the ones that haven't been completed yet?
Yes.
As we finish those and start shipping those out.
Yes, there will be updates, but also David Bartlett, and you, Adam, I know, have been also responding to people and making sure stuff gets sent out. So it's, so reaching out to David Bartlett or Adam Sartain is really a great idea generally. And, but I try to update stuff as I can. But things are getting increasingly busy when it's my turn, I'll get to why. But that's good. So great. So let me see. So I guess Brian.
Can I ask?
Oh yeah. Yes, David.
Can I jump
yes,
in here?
Dave.
We were talking about computers a moment ago.
Sure.
I am considering upgrading the operating system on my MacBook Pro, my 2012 MacBook Pro, to Catalina. And the reason I haven't is because there are several pieces of software that won't run on Catalina.
Wow.
Including QuickTime 7, which was much better than the current one. But I'll let that go. There are alternates, but it won't run Final Cut Pro 7. And once in a while, I get somebody who needs some work on an old project or needs a file. So although I have Final Cut 7 on a couple of older computers, a laptop and a tower. Does anybody here have any experience with Catalina and a reason I should not upgrade? Does it have it? If anybody's on a Mac, is there any reason why Catalina, what's the technical word, sucks?
I've been on Catalina since I got the new computer. Haven't had any issues. Now, of course, they're getting ready to upgrade again.
Jesus.
So you're about to be a couple behind. But if you ever think about doing this, is instead of upgrading to Catalina, putting Catalina on a different drive.
Yeah.
Because then you can. I used to do it between computers, whereas if I had a Final Cut Pro project, I would just do it on this computer, and if everything else new, I would do on the new computer. But because of the way things work on your computer, I can't do this on my computer. But you do it on your computer. If you have a drive for each, it's like, well, I got to work on Final Cut Pro 7, so I'll start up on this drive with Catalina. Whereas I can continue working with the newer stuff before I get outdated on Catalina.
Yeah, that's true. I was reading up a while ago about having an external drive to boot up in a different operating system. Maybe I'll give you a call if I can, and we can talk.
I'm here. I'm here.
Thanks,
I got the number.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
And I know Steve Sasaki, you've been waiting for a while, so why don't you take your turn, and then we'll continue along. If you can. There you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
I thought I'd just check in. I don't get to be here that often, but Yeah, I'm happy I'm here today, and I did want to check in because just sort of share the news. I had written a short film, and it has a plot element about Japanese imprisonment during World War II, and it feels like it went through a number of iterations, and it felt like it finally was fully realized. And so I had entered it in some contests, and it became a finalist and won.
Great.
And it
Yay.
was deemed a winner in the other, and
Wow, that's great.
it's still advancing in the other two. So
That's cool.
That's wonderful.
yeah, I was really thrilled that it's
What?
Oh, Steve?
Have we lost you?
Steve, we
Oh,
lost
no.
you.
Yeah, you've just
Steve,
frozen.
you froze. Darn.
Yeah.
Well, there you are.
Wait, no,
That's great timing.
no. There. Oh,
Steve?
back.
There we go.
let's see.
Maybe I'll.
Where'd he go?
Steve?
He's gone.
What happened?
Well,
I think he's rebooting.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Well, we'll resume when he
Just in the middle of great
reappears.
news.
No,
That-
well,
oh,
you know.
darn.
Well, you know. But okay, so let's see. So I guess Brian Hasek, if you want to take your turn, go for it.
Sure. Brian Hasek, USC film grad, doing a lot of screenwriting for a few years, and now moving more towards the visual because that's what I really love about film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been doing storyboard work. Next week is the Lightbox Expo online for anyone interested in film art or animation, stuff like that. And yeah, right during this time, just been trying to get in all kinds of
Thirsty.
different areas of production. And yeah, I'll be back to Space Command next week to help David out.
Great.
Oh, well, great.
Got this book, haven't read it yet. It was recommended on one of the last couple meetings.
Sure. Fun.
And yeah, just looking forward to working more and learning some more.
Cool. Great. Well, 3 cheers.
Yes.
Yay.
Do you need anything
Oh,
specific?
Elaine's asking if you need anything.
Not at this point.
Okay,
Just
great.
yeah, got my plate full and
Good.
use more time, but everyone needs more time.
Great. Well, thanks, Brian. Now, Steve Sasaki's back. Do you want to finish what you were saying, Steve?
We lost you just in the middle of a great victory.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So you're a winner. You're a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hopefully my internet will remain stable through this.
Mhm.
But yeah, it seems like I'm probably at the next step of looking for a director or producer to try and see if I could get this made. But
Sure.
I feel confident now based on the input from the festivals that
Great.
it's at a good level, something that's worthwhile, the
Cool.
script. So
Great.
and one of the one where it won, it's going to be table read as
Great.
part of that festival. So
Great.
yeah, I'm excited about that.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
That is exciting. Just do your due diligence for picking the director
Yeah,
and producer.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you need, Steve?
Not that I can think of right offhand.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just wanted to check in
But
and
that's great.
share the news.
Great.
That's wonderful.
Well, great.
Congratulations.
Well, 3 cheers. Yay.
Yeah. Mark,
Yes.
I want to say something to Steve. I was
Uh-oh.
up at Manzanar not too long ago, last year sometime, and it's a camp that was an internment camp that was made into an outdoor museum.
Mhm.
Those of you who don't know. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't think much of it. I didn't know much about it. And then I really got into the land that's around it and the platforms where the houses were, and the museum is still there of the main area that depicts exactly what happened. And it really started to slowly sink into me what an outrage the whole scenario was that I think most Americans, myself certainly, didn't really know much about or have it affect them much. So it's an area that really needs to be explored. And I don't know how much I can help you with it, but happy to read your script and give you input on how you might get it made or whatever. So I think it's an important subject matter that really needs to be out there.
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah,
One person that's really big on this too is George Takei.
Of course.
He's
Yes.
a very, very big supporter of this exact
Sure.
scenario, and he was actually a part of it at the time. So
Right. And George has written about it in his autobiography, and also, of course, the play that he mentored that was on Broadway, and also he did a graphic novel recently about his experiences in the camps. Unlike others, I knew a lot about the camps because one of my history teachers in high school was in the internment camps as a kid, Mr. Kuriyama. So it was something that I've known about a long time. So yeah, absolutely. And also, Steve, don't forget about the Japanese American Museum downtown, because again, they have a lot of resources, and definitely connecting up with them would be a very good idea.
Okay, yeah, it was actually my mom that was in the one in Idaho, but
yes,
this one, it's set in Manzanar, so
great.
Yeah,
cool.
But it sort of came about because I noticed that there was like trauma left over from what my mom hadn't expressed,
yes,
and so that was sort of the inspiration for writing this.
Yes. Well, that's great. Well, 3 cheers for you. Yay.
Thank you.
So, Adam, do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. We have a question from Willem Sowers.
Okay, hi. I will.
Who asks, will families be put on the Paladin?
No. Nope. It's much more like a PT boat kind of ship than something like the Enterprise. And of course, on Star Trek: Next Generation, they absolutely didn't know how to write children. I mean, the way they dealt with Wesley was just appalling and pitiful. And so, it's many writers have an inability at writing children well. Elaine is very good at writing children, but boy, there are a lot of writers who can't and shouldn't. But so there will be family. There are families, of course, in Space Command, and people of all ages from 8 or 9 all the way into their 90s. But
we have fathers and grown sons. And,
yes.
Fathers and grown daughters.
Well, and Alfie and all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
But
we want to.
Wasn't on the
ship.
But
there won't be families on the Paladin. It's not that kind of ship. So, okie doke. So let me look. So now, Stephanie Massengale, do you want to take your turn?
Sure. I'm new to the group and was referred by Dot Barham.
Great.
And I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Yay.
Thanks. And I'm recovering from a broken ankle, so I'm getting over that. I tripped exercising, not fun.
Oh, God.
And I'll be out in LA in November, and I'm a psychic. I do psychic work, and I channel the Arcturians, which is I channel aliens.
Wow.
So I'm thinking maybe that's one of the reasons Doc was like, you ought to try this. I've done some script editing and book editing and talk school for a long time before, about a decade ago, that all the psychic stuff happened. And then, so I have a group that I channel the Arcturians. I have a British South African accent. When I do it, I go into altered states.
Wow.
My brain waves have been tracked on the average person's delta brainwave state is like 5 to 7%. And my waking delta brainwave state is like 28%. And when I channel Aria, it's like 48% of my brain.
Wow.
Have you been on Doc's podcast?
I have not.
Mm-hmm.
We've been friends for a long time, so I'll have to check that out.
Elbow him in the ribs.
I will do that. I've been out to LA once before to visit him, and he was like, well, if you're coming out, you should connect with this group called The Table. And
yes.
Of course, I'm a big sci-fi fan. And
sure.
Yes, because I channel Aria, I thought, well, maybe this is why, the universe has a way of lining up who you need to be, that kind of thing. And I do, Reiki, hands-on healing, stuff like that. So I can send energy to the cat,
But in that regard, prior to the pandemic, of course, we used to meet regularly at a restaurant, and the table's been going for 27 years. But so as month by month, we're seeing how this is going, and so there will be a point in the future. I don't know if it'll be November, but it'll definitely be in the near future where we'll be getting together in person once again. So we'll see what the future brings. But
of course, the good thing about this is that we do get people from all over the world.
Yes, and
members from all over the world.
Yes, and there's offshoots of the table in many, many cities, but also, and Elaine and I founded the group way back when, and but also there's a table email, and David Bartlett is our conduit for that. And one can get on the table email where you can send one email out to all several thousand members with requests and so forth. It's very, it's a very powerful tool. So is there anything?
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you need, Stephanie?
Not at the moment. I mean, I had not heard about Space Command. It sounds really interesting. So
Yeah.
later, maybe I can connect with somebody that can tell me about it. It
Yes.
just sounds like a lot of fun, and I'd like to find out more about it. I guess.
Yeah. Well, I have my own YouTube channel called Mr. Sci-Fi, and that's SCI-FI, and you can actually watch the first several hours of Space Command on my YouTube channel for free. So I would recommend that. And I also talk about science fiction. I talk about science fiction, and I've written for many, many shows. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You might
So
mention the two faces. I mean,
the what?
The business face and we have two aspects of the table email.
Oh yes. Well, no, but those have sort of merged
Oh, they have?
lately. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But that's great. Well, thanks, Stephanie. Anything else?
No, I think we're good. Thanks so
Okay.
much, and I'll just keep listening. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yay. So let's see. Thane, you're next on my screen.
I'm talking, so
Yes.
good.
Good.
I'm a SAG-AFTRA character actor, and just found out that I have been asked to perform 12 minutes of my solo show virtually on September 30th at the Whitefire Theater. I'll put up the link for that. I think there will be 6 other artists performing that night. There will only be 2 people in the theater, the tech guy and the performer. Then we're out, and then one performer leaves, another one comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll all be done very safe. This is new material. So that's great. A film I was in a couple of years ago that's been circulating around the European film festival circuit, won 50 best film awards in the process. It's going to be featured at the We Make Movies Film Festival September 20th.
Wow.
And again, that's going to be online. It's Block 20, and I think it's at 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon. So it's a film about Alzheimer's and very timely, having to deal with friends and family in various stages of dementia or pre-Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some things that are finally actually happening. In the meantime, I started a Wednesday night writing class that'll run for 4 weeks on developing characters that I think will help with some of my other writing projects. And I've been asked to help rewrite a song, personalize a song for someone who is taking a singing class. And knowing that I'm a poet, I must be able to write new words for a song for her. So we'll see how that goes. It's always a challenge to learn new styles and so on. So keeping busy, staying healthy, and I do have an empty apartment. Became available today. If anybody's looking for a place to live, and they can let me know in the messages.
Okay, cool. Yay. 3 cheers. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have a writing question from Robbie Riley Esquire.
Yes.
Who asks,
Hi, Robbie.
what perspective do you like to write in? First person, second person, etc.
In the novels, like the Magic Time novels, I would write third person, though Maya Bonhoeffer, when she wrote the second novel, she wrote first person, switching between characters. You always have to decide in a novel whose head you're in, even if you're writing third person. There's a story I'm writing, a Space Command story called Grizzled Space Jockey, that's about the character that I play in Space Command, and that's going to be first person. I've started writing it already. But I've noticed, interestingly enough, that I like certain writers best in first person. For instance, John Wyndham, who wrote Day of the Triffids, I like his books best when they're written first person. He has a very engaging first-person voice as a writer. So, but yeah, and Elaine, do you have an opinion? I mean, obviously, when you're writing scripts, you're not in a first, second, or third person.
You
It's
should say your role in Space Command is a cameo. It's your Hitchcock.
yes,
It's not a pivotal role in the show, but in the story.
yes, exactly. Well, there's actually 3 cameos in the pilot that I do, and this will link those 3 cameos together to explain how I got from point A to point B to point C. Yeah, exactly.
I'd say it's more of a Stan Lee than a Hitchcock, but okay.
I'd say that it's the key and most important role in the entire series.
Yeah, I'll agree with Adam.
Yeah, well, there you go. So,
Hubbard is the most important one.
well, yes, exactly. That's the
Corey
role.
Hubbard.
That's the role that David plays. So, Carol Fields, are you there?
What was Elaine's answer to that?
Oh, did you have an answer, Elaine?
Oh, I think the most important role was.
No.
I
The
know.
first
I
person,
know.
second person.
I tend to really like to get into people's feelings, but it's usually third person, not first person.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, Carol, go for it.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you. After I read that little piece that I wrote last week. 3 of you thanked me in the most lovely emails.
Oh, great.
So 2 were very personal. So thank you. That was so darling. I thought you'd be able to relate a little bit. So thanks so much. Mark and Elaine, I was just thinking today how much this coming here on Thursday night it just breaks my week and breaks my week up.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me that even though I really left acting to take on a second career, I never left it emotionally. And it's good to know who you are.
Yes.
It's good to know who you are, and some things some things are just there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just come in here and I feel like I'm well received, and I don't feel like a show off that I am. Yeah. So yeah, I'm available for table reads. Thank you very much. A couple things. I'm reading Bette Midler's biography just because I wanted something light, because I just read 3 books on pandemics. Thank you. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And as much as she's super talented, she worked her butt off to get where she is. She started a trio in high school in Hawaii, and she never stopped gunning it. She landed in New York when she was about 21, and she immediately signed up for classes and just didn't stop hitting the pavement and hitting people. So someone saw her sang and said, "Come to the Continental Baths. You would be great for this." She was like the gay diva. And it's just a good reminder that yes, talent and all that stuff, but it's also perseverance. And, it doesn't. Yes, we saw where luck hit her. Still perseverance. So we are. I think we are an effect of our own destiny. So to sit back and wait for the phone to ring never worked for me. So I don't know who else is doing it. 2 other things. I don't know if you've discovered the show Hollywood on Netflix yet.
Yes.
It's based on Scotty Bauer's book Full Service, which I read 2 years ago.
Yes.
Full Service was a gas station in Hollywood that didn't just fill up your car.
Right.
You drove up and you said, "I'd like to go to Dreamland," and that meant. And I was watching it yesterday, and I just need to diffuse this. It's beautifully. The script, the scenic designers need all different types of Emmy awards on this. Wonderfully acting, really entertaining, but it upset the fudge out of me because it said that its fiction is that anybody in Hollywood with a scintilla of power are monstrous a-holes. That the only way to get anywhere is through favors, and preferably sexual favors. That's really Ryan Murphy's whole motif. And it's wonderful to watch. I turned it off. I was just really angry last night.
Yes.
And I realized why, because that's not all of what Hollywood is.
No, it's not true. And it's very interesting, Carol. On that note, there's a station, a channel called Canopy, and if you have a library card, you can watch that station for free. And they have the documentary on Scotty Bowers that's really, 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 really interesting, because he was a very cheerful and very forthright person, very charming. It features him and a lot of his friends when he's older. And there's something that kind of makes it not sordid or cynical because of how he is. And I think it sounds from what you're saying that the TV show has a sort of an attitude that is distasteful, that does not really reflect how he was. It's absolutely not true that you have to be an asshole to work in Hollywood, and it's absolutely not true that all the people working in positions of power are assholes. It's totally not true at all. And there's a terrible Hollywood and a wonderful Hollywood, and they're side by side. They exist side by side. But the
piece of that is now in prison.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein. But yeah. But there are many, many wonderful people. I've worked with many wonderful people. I know many wonderful people, and they stand by their word, and they mean what they say, and they do great work, and they go home to their wives and kids, so or whatever the permutation. And so it's yeah.
He's like my shrink this time. No, he just said to me, right, thank you.
Great.
I did help.
Great.
I really did help. I had one last question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit too big, but whatever you respond is fine.
Sure.
What's the most important thing to go for when you pitch?
A sale. And making sure the check clears. It's pitching is such an art. It's such there's so many different ways of doing it. There's so many different ways of making it work. Most people aren't able to make it work because at the end of the day, it's about selling. It's about closing the deal. Everything else is just actions toward no purpose, really. And so that's why, for instance, in my career, as you know, I've been successful, but now in my career, I sort of am the driving force simply because I don't have any more interest in auditioning for things I want to do. I much prefer just doing the things I want to do and finding the way to make that work,
But we can tell you some of the things that go awry, which is people don't have a clear through line.
No.
They get involved in the detail rather than the clear emotional ride, that hook. So they want to know, well, it depends on whether it's a film or a series that you're pitching, but it is important that you say, oh, I'm taking the ride with this individual or these people, and here's the emotional thrust, and I'm not going to be busy with a whole bunch of side rooms. I just understand what it's core about. I get hooked into it. But unfortunately, more than I would prefer, but in terms of the actual sale for most people, is it becomes clear who the demographic is and what would make it sell. So if it's too, I'll go for things that are much more offbeat, but they're risking a lot of money. And we were really thrown. This happened a few years ago when they said, "What's on the bus board?" We said, "What?" But the bus board where they advertise.
Right.
We didn't get it, but then we say, "Oh, that's what a bus board is," and isn't that in the hands of the PR? No.
Anyway,
in other words, that it's not just that it gets people excited, and once they sit down, they'll like it. But that whole commercial thing of saying, what will make people want to turn it on or go to the movie theater? What's the hook that you say? What would really allure people? And so those are two of the things. One is an emotional through line. So once they get there, there'll be word of mouth. But what will get them there? What will put them in the seats?
Yes.
Because they've got to. The people that you want money from, they have to worry about the business side. And so that's not entirely cynical. They want to know what's going to fill the seats.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, it's like the rules keep changing again and again and again and again. And so just seeing, okay, what reaches critical mass, and go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the main thing is the question really isn't it's a big mistake most people make is they think it's about the idea, and it's almost never about the idea. It's about them trusting you to be able to execute what they want you to execute, and that's why it's so important to go in with someone, if possible, that they've worked before and that's been successful, because they're taking a huge risk in saying yes to you. It's always a dangerous, and I don't mean just you, I mean anybody. It's a huge risk, and because it costs millions of dollars to make anything, and if you screw up, it's their career, So,
but it's also pitching to the right person.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've told this story before, but you want to be sure that you do pitch to the right person, because someone was trying to help me sell something, and I hadn't realized
they were idiots.
No, that the people that I was pitching to were from
what?
Disney.
From Disney. Oh, yeah.
From Disney, and so I hadn't realized
audience.
that. And so I sat down with them, and the very sweet young executive, she said, "Your script, it's got a lot of subtext." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, it would take really good actors." And I said, "Yeah." And I thought, it's time to leave the room. It's time to leave the room. Because sometimes you're just pitching to the wrong buyer.
Yes.
What is that what your thought bubble was thinking at the time?
Yes. But,
so part of it is pick the person to whom you're pitching.
Yeah. Cool.
And I thought my partner had researched and she hadn't, and it wasn't horrible because the person was very sweet, but it was a waste of everybody's time.
Yes. So great. So anything else, Carol? Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yay. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
I think we are all caught up.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would like to mention, as we did have earlier, that for the 20 people watching on Mr. Sci-Fi, that we do have super stickers and super chat enabled.
Great.
So
Great.
if you want your question to jump to the top, or you want a special shout out, you can give us a couple bucks. And,
And we also have a Patreon account, patreon.com/Mark Zickery, where you can actually ongoingly support all of our efforts. There is actually a question from Robbie Riley.
Oh, there it is.
Which is about, it says, you held up your Hammett and Chandler books last week. Great find. Are you a fan of Gerald Moore's Marlowe and other detective stories adapted for radio? Yes. I mean, not specifically. I've listened to Gerald Moore's Marlowe. My favorite radio show is I Love a Mystery. I also love X-1 and Dimension X. These are the shows from the 50s. And, of course, Journey into Space is a terrific show. But there were some great detective shows on the radio, and I've listened to many, many, many of them. By the way, I don't know if I showed this last week, but this is a first edition of the Maltese Falcon, so pretty fun, pretty cool. So there's that. So neat. So okay, cool. So great. So next is Heidi. Go for it, Heidi.
Hello, my name is Heidi Miro. I am a production assistant / logger / transcriber.
Yay.
I recently, I resolved my IMDb issue, so that's good.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
I'm now updating my resume. So my question is it a good idea to add my IMDb to the resume?
Sure.
As in alongside my contact information at the top of the page?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that resume. So in other words, if we're your transcriber, in other words, when you wear many hats and you're trying to get hired for a specific one, you want that one to be the one that you kind of lead with, So again, it's sort of like, and also make sure with IMDb that it has a link to something you want people to be aware of rather than a link to something that you're embarrassed about. So because for a while they had some weird thing on my IMDb listing of some show I'd written for, it was like not one of my favorite credits, to say the least. And so again, remember that all of the materials you put out to people are advertisements for you. And so you want to make sure that it's giving the message that you want to give. But be aware that whatever, if it's anything related to film, TV, any of that stuff, everyone is going to immediately go to IMDb, regardless of whether or not that's on your resume. And just like they'll go to Google, they'll go to Wikipedia, people basically, and so that's where it's very important, if possible, to make sure those things are accurate. you know. And there's also services that you can hire where, like, if something comes up, you know, like let's say you were, you know, you dressed up as, you know, something you shouldn't have dressed up as back when you were at 8 years old or something, as the first thing that comes up on Google. You can hire people to like remove that, you know, scrub that out. And but yeah, so that's the main thing. But again, it's very important to realize that, like, for instance, Wikipedia is often inaccurate, and so you have to make sure that what it says is right. And the same thing with IMDb. I mean, IMDb often gets people's credits wrong and gets all sorts of things screwed up. I mean, it's very funny because recently I went through a file for the Kickstarter campaign. I found a file folder of outlines I'd written for all these different animation shows I'd worked on. I had no idea I'd worked on Care Bears. I had no idea that I had worked on Captain EO with Michael Jackson or all these other things. I mean, it's like Dungeons and Dragons and so forth. I mean, you know, I knew I wrote for Smurfs and He-Man and Real Ghostbusters and all that stuff, the Littles. But there were shows I didn't even remember having had anything to do with that were in there. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, Mark, I was David Bartlett 1 because when they first formed IMDb, they took all the Academy Directory credits and put them in as the foundation, and just lucked into it.
Huh.
And there are currently, I think there's 13 David Bartletts, and 3 of them are me.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
IMDb doesn't really quite have it going on yet, but they're much better than they used to be, and you can make adjustments and changes. So
Good. So, okay, great. So, Heidi, other questions?
No, you answered it. Thank you.
Yay! 3 cheers. But I mean, it's really interesting because I wear several hats, God knows. But the interesting thing in my career, particularly, is that I'm well known as a TV writer, you know, a science fiction writer. I'm also highly known as a as like the author of the Twilight Zone Companion and a media nonfiction writer about media. So often I'll know people in different, like for instance, like, you know, Leonard Maltin and people like that. I know those kind of people because of the Twilight Zone Companion, etc. And yet with TV, I know a lot of the showrunners in science fiction, particularly. But I also know a lot of the science fiction novelists because I've written novels and made it a point to go to Worldcon and meet all those people. So, but again, I was very aware that those are very different hats, and they have very different rules. Publication, you know, the working for the publishers, writing books, very different rules from Hollywood. And you really have to not be arrogant when you switch media from like something like TV to books. You have to come with humility and say, I don't know how this works. And because initially I was a bull in a china shop and I was stepping on a lot of toes inadvertently. And it was simply because what would not be a problem at all working as a writer producer on a TV show was very much a problem dealing with a publishing house and with HarperCollins, you know. So I've learned, but there was a learning curve, definitely. So cool. So 3 cheers, Heidi. Yay. So is there another question for Mr. Sci-Fi, Adam?
Yes, we have another question from Mark Lungo.
Hi, Mark.
Who asks, did you ever listen to CBS Radio Mystery Theater or Zero Hour hosted by Rod Serling?
I listened to some of the Mystery Theater, you know, CBS Radio Mystery Theater. I didn't like it that much. And it was after the golden age of Hollywood. I mean, the great era for American radio drama and comedy, of course, was the 1930s through the 1950s. And in Britain, of course, it continued. And there's just been great radio drama throughout, you know, for like almost 100 years. But CBS Radio Mystery Theater, I think, was in the 70s and 80s, whatever. Zero Hour, again, was a similar radio show that Rod Serling hosted. But again, I've not really gotten much into it because I don't think Rod wasn't the showrunner on that, and you know, he was just kind of a guy for hire, and you know, so that's why I really haven't gotten into it. But certain shows like X-1 was a terrific radio show adapting short stories from Galaxy Magazine and Astounding, and those are wonderful adaptations. And now you can find all this stuff on YouTube. Oddly enough, a lot of audiobooks and old radio shows are on YouTube, and it's really worth checking them out. They're terrific. So let's see. So Mark Gushwitz, you're up next. Go for it.
Hello. I actually have a Mr. Sci-Fi style question for you.
Yes.
Before we talk about me.
Sure.
You brought up the Harlan Ellison book.
Yes.
So this is actually something that could teach people a lesson about believing in themselves if it's true.
Yes.
But I read once that Harlan Ellison had a college professor who told him not to quit his day job kind of thing.
Right.
He wasn't a good enough writer. And then after he made it big, he would send a copy of everything he published to this teacher.
Well, it was even more than that. Basically, this was a teacher who said to Harlan, it wasn't don't quit your day job. It's just it basically you have no talent and you will never make it as a writer. So Harlan, being extremely vindictive, sent him every single thing he ever wrote in his career ongoingly for decades. So this professor ended up having an extremely valuable Harlan Ellison collection ultimately. And so, yeah, I think that is a true story. So
my question was whether you knew whether he was doing it to be vindictive.
Oh,
or
yeah.
if it was
Oh,
kind of
sure.
like a running joke between them.
No, not at all. Harlan was an extremely vindictive person, and did not. No, he was definitely one of the things Harlan said is he woke up every day of his life angry, and that was actually true. He was temperamentally he was sort of like the absolute opposite of Ray Bradbury. Ray came from love and from joy, and that's sort of what motivated Ray. He was a very loving man, a very great guy. He was a dear friend, and Harlan, who also was a friend and mentor to me, was very angry, but he also had he was a very complicated guy, and he was a snob, but he was also a kind person in his way. Just a real mixture of qualities. I did a when Harlan died, I did a Mr. Sci-Fi where I talked about my experiences with Harlan for about a half hour, and it's a really, I think, good piece on him because it goes over all. I mean, he was more than any other writer. I think Harlan Ellison had the most influence on me becoming a writer of anybody, even more than Ray or Ted Sturgeon or any of the other people who've been friends and mentors, even Serling. And because Harlan was very, very inspirational to me in many, many ways. So, and yet we were not really close friends. We were friendly acquaintances. But despite my attempts to become his friend, he was a tough nut to crack. And I'll tell you one Harlan story, because he had this house called Ellison Wonderland that he had designed, and it was filled with wonders from his career and acquisitions and so forth. So one day, I don't know, maybe about 5-10 years ago, I called him and I said, Harlan, I was just making up my bucket list, and one of the things on my bucket list is I would love to come and get a tour of your house. And Harlan said, okay, well, tell you what, when you know when you're going to die, call me and I'll give you the tour. And in the background, I heard Susan go, Harlan. and that was that. So I've never actually seen his house. I've never been inside the house. I never got the tour. And that's so that's Harlan. That's Harlan to a T. So but there you go.
All right, so me, my name's Mark. I'm an editor. Been busy a lot up until recently. I think that next Tuesday is going to be my first full day off with nothing to do.
Oh my God.
So David Bartlett, I've been promising to help you out for years now. If you've got anything you want me to do for you on Tuesday, then let's talk.
Wow.
Because I don't really want to sit in this house anymore. It's relaxing, or this apartment anymore. So
I've got Pico Rivera. I've got a need for help there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll email you, or maybe we can talk on the phone and you tell me where you need me and whatever.
Cool.
Tuesday, right now, Tuesday's yours.
All right.
And if you want to keep it yours, maybe we should talk right after this.
Yes.
So I can put you in my
I'm talking now. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so let's talk after this, but I will put you right now, Tuesday's yours.
Great.
Because not only have you done me a lot of favors, but Mark's done me favors just by being on my podcast as the first the guest.
That's
and
fun.
by the way, we're still getting downloads on that episode 2 months later.
Great.
Yeah, and also this group has been really great to me, so I really want to kind of get back to and finally find my way over to Spaceman.
Wow, that's cool. Well, thank you, Mark. Anything else you need?
No, so this is what's been going on with me, though. So the graphics for the short film are still coming in relatively slowly, but they are moving forward. I'm waiting to hear from Earl about the next round of our music. I think he just knew that I was really busy this week, so he's been kind of leaving me alone. And then we posted the newest episode of our podcast, The Screen Forum, on Tuesday with a stunt guy, John Nania, who is Sebastian Stan stunt double on Falcon and Winter Soldier. So he's the main stunt guy for Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Cool.
And next Wednesday, we'll be recording with a production designer, which I'm really looking forward to because we already had an initial talk with him, and I couldn't believe how much goes into production design that I didn't realize. And I've done production design. But we did an initial conversation with him, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. And I got all these questions now that I want to ask him that I would have never thought of before. Like, to be an example, how close is his relationship with the stunt people? Because you got breakaway chairs and everything. And it's like, I would have never thought about that when talking to a production designer. We'd just be thinking about putting couches and chairs down. So I'm looking forward to that. But like I said, we just did the stunt guy, so if people want to go over to thescreenforum.com or visit us on Facebook. There's links on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Cool. It's a pretty good episode. I'm actually really looking for comments on this one because of the nature of how we did it. And I'm also looking for reviews. So that's it. Okay. Brian will tell you how great the show is because he's given us a good review on Apple.
Cool.
So,
that's cool.
And of course, when you got guests like Mark on, how could it be bad? It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for the best people to tell us. We're basically not just asking questions. We're trying to follow up those questions and dig a little deeper. So.
Oh, cool. That's great. Well, thanks, Mark. 3 cheers. Yay. And I noticed, by the way, on the feed, on the Mr. Sci-Fi feed, Kevin Scott was asking if I saw the model of the Paladin he did in Legos or the Space Command drawing. No, I haven't. And so you might want to resend them to markzickery@gmail.com. I'll check out my Facebook feed and see that stuff. It looks like fun. I'll just go hunting for it. Also, one thing I wanted to mention, just as a side note, is I've been redoing the wall behind me and just putting more cool stuff up. And if you notice the picture of Ted Sturgeon, there's a sort of, and the picture of Gene Roddenberry, there's a little hole above, and I was looking for something to put in that hole, and this is going to go up there, which is it's a signed picture of Mr. Rogers, oddly enough. We met him in Pittsburgh some years ago when we were up for a job at PBS, and we met him, and he signed a photo to us. So there it is. That's going to go on the wall.
And he talked to us through his little...
He had his little puppets, and he asked his assistant for one of the puppets, and he talked to us through the puppets, and it was embarrassing for a grown man to be doing that. So, but, there you go. And, absolutely. But we didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers, so he's just like a normal person talking through puppets to us. So it wasn't a heartwarming moment for us. It was simply an embarrassing...
But the documentary on him certainly wasn't.
The documentary on him is great. And, but yeah, I like what he stood for, and I like who he was, and so this will go on the wall until I see a better offer on eBay. And so is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have another. Lots of super chats coming in. This is great.
Money's good.
So we have a question from Daggerley Garnett.
Great.
Who says, I've always wondered where the idea of Klingons came from.
Sure.
Also always wanted to be one in Next Generation.
Well, that's that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
So here's the answer about that. The original Star Trek was done during the Cold War, and they wanted to have aliens who were sort of surrogates for the Russians, with the idea that the Federation was sort of a futuristic surrogate for the United States. And so they created the Klingons to sort of be that, because the original Star Trek was made during the Vietnam War, where they had, the U.S. fighting surrogates of the Soviet Union and China and so forth. So, and these little mini wars, because once the nuclear weapons were invented, no one could go to war big scale like World War II, because it would be just the end of the planet and the species. So there were all these little kind of wars that popped up, and are still popping up, of course. So so the Klingons were created to be that, and originally they looked human, and they just kind of had goatees, and were character actors and so forth. But the irony was they were called Klingons, but no one had thought about what the planet was called, and obviously, and so at one point they even were playing with the idea of calling it the planet Kling, which really sounded stupid. So then they came up with calling it Kronos, but spelling it weird, like Qorons, something like that. And that's where it came from. And then in Star Trek: The Next Generation with Worf and so forth, and also it started in the movies with Mark Leonard playing the Klingon commander. They for the movies they made the Klingons look like an alien species, more or less, and then that continued on, and then they had to sort of figure. Yes.
Is it true that the name Klingon, I don't know if you said this or not, was the name of one of the partners of Gene Roddenberry when he was in the police car?
I have heard that, so it's possible, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I heard he had a partner who never took a bath.
Huh.
And that was the inspiration for the Klingon character.
It's possible, but it's probably not the case. The only similar thing I ever heard about was they did one episode with space hippies, and the space hippies, when they wanted to insult someone, they called them a Herbert, and Herbert was Herb Solo, who was the Desilu / Paramount executive overseeing the show, and so that was sort of a little in joke for Herbert Solo. But the other thing with Klingons I hadn't heard. But anyway, they've continued on to be this species that has been in every Star Trek iteration ever since. So there you go. So let's see. I guess David Goldenholtz, I guess you're next on my screen.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh.
You might want to turn it up. It's a little hard to hear you. Or sit closer or do whatever you need to do. Nah, not really.
Very soft. We can hear you, but you're very soft.
Yeah. That's interesting. No, it's your.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, sure. Should we take someone else and then come back to you, David?
Or would you like to?
No, it's
Okay,
fine.
okay.
So John Watson, let's do you, and then we'll go back to David once he gets his voice better. Okay. Let's see. You just have to unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. Last week I was talking about doing a table read.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like I don't remember if you told me all that I have to do is to just sign up for it and everything and do it on meeting. So what do I do exactly?
Basically, David Bartlett can probably connect you up with Howard, who sets up the table reads.
Okay.
It'll be a little.
I remember he said something about that. I probably wrote it down too, but I can't.
Yeah. So afterwards, you and David can coordinate on that and make it happen. Wait, David.
John, just send me an email. My email list, name is in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of the main things
I remember now. Okay.
something that's helpful for a table read is, even if it's done virtually, is as the writer, make a little like one-liner of each character.
Yes.
So that you want to get as appropriate actors as you can.
Yes.
And you'll get a lot of volunteers.
Yes.
But you want to make sure that it's kind of a match, because it can be your impression of your own work can get thrown off if you have an inappropriate reader for a role. So if you can kind of pinpoint the personalities that you're looking for, you find actors who can play those personalities, and so that's helpful. If you have like a I would tend, whenever I could, I would call up every actor for a table read and talk about the character before the table read. But in terms of the tech, yes, do call David, and they can help you set up your table read. It's free.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, I do have another question though.
Sure. Yes.
Because I was talking to this guy, an actor. He said that as a writer that what I should do is join the Writers Guild, right?
No. You can't join the Writers Guild unless you're hired to write a script by a Writers Guild signatory company. It's not something you can join on your own recognizance. No. I mean, the Writers Guild is the Writers Guild is well worth being a member of. Every major TV show and movie made by a studio or a major network is Writers Guild signatory. But you don't have to be worry about being in the Writers Guild, because if you sell something to a major show, then you'll join automatically. So So yeah,
and that's one of the unions that's really worth it because
it's
they've
great.
got the health plan and they've got
And pension
and they go, and there's a lot of people who don't pay writers and they go after them.
yes,
you
you
don't
get
have
paid.
to.
You absolutely
You have
get
to get
paid.
paid because there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who think you don't pay the writer.
And they set minimums that are very very nice and lucrative.
And they've got attorneys there that are fighting the producers. So
Anyway.
they're a good feisty
Though
union.
the one thing you can do regarding the Writers Guild is you can go on their website and get on their email, because they send out various email announcements. And back when the pandemic's over, they have events that are open to the public, and usually those are free. Additionally, they have a Writers Guild library that's open to the public when it's not a pandemic, and that you can't check things out, but they've got DVDs, they've got scripts, they've got all sorts of stuff there. It's a really great resource. And but of course, during the pandemic, that's not an option.
You can't talk to them.
No. So
That's right.
so anything else, John?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, yay! So I guess we'll go back to you, David. See if your voice is better.
Yes.
Ah,
Better?
yes.
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 Okay, so as of right now, everything's going well.
Great.
I'm doing a podcast. It's going pretty swimmingly.
Great.
And as a side note from the podcast, which is also was brought up in the podcast, there's this stuff called Szechuan Sauce. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes.
So it came out yesterday, and the actual sauce. And apparently it came out in a different country, and they had to make it a limited amount because there were, here in the U.S. last time they brought to the U.S., there were riots and like people had to be thrown in jail, and there was crazy amounts of people just going over.
All because of a Rick and Morty cartoon.
Wow, Jesus. Okay.
But aside from that,
yes.
I'm just working on that. I'm also looking for voiceover work. I'm still posting on the site, still posting on the emails.
Good.
And I'm still posting on the emails for field mixing work, although, as we know, there's not a lot of that right now.
Yes.
What's the name of the podcast?
Coffees, Discussions, and Questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to invite some of the people to the table as guests to it.
Cool.
Right, okay.
So anything you need beyond that?
No.
Okay.
I'm good at the moment.
Great. Okay, 3 cheers. Yay. So do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
We do.
Great.
But first, another super chat. Love Space Command and Mr. Sci-Fi.
Thanks. Me too.
Welcome, Max World.
Yay.
So for our next question is from Robbie Riley again.
Yes.
Who says many radio drama actors made it into sci-fi and TV films.
Yes.
Bill Conrad, Paul Frees, Jack Crucian, Les Tremaine. Are any of those favorites of yours?
Yes, all of them, basically. And I met many of them. Marvin Miller was another one. He was the voice of Robbie the Robot in Forbidden Planet, and I met him as well. Les Tremaine was terrific. All these guys. And of course, many shows, the radio version would be airing when the TV version was airing, and they'd be different stories. So, for instance, Space Patrol, which is one of my favorite shows from the 50s, they did a radio show and they did a TV show, and they were different scripts and same actors. So I met those actors and those writers when they were still alive, obviously, and it was quite wonderful. The Gunsmoke, of course, is much better on radio because William Conrad plays Marshal Matt Dillon, and that's probably it's definitely one of the high points of radio. So those were spectacularly done, and
they would deal with serious social issues.
Yes.
On the radio, and the TV show was more of a straight ahead Western, but the radio show was really stretching the boundaries.
Well, by the time radio ended in the late 50s, it had really reached a level of sophistication and skill And TV, of course, in the 50s, until we get to things like Twilight Zone, was pretty rough around the edges, particularly live television. And but the great thing is that now you can not only check out all the old radio shows on YouTube, you can also check out a lot of those 1950s live broadcasts, the kinescopes that exist on YouTube as well. There was an organization called SPURDVAC, the Society to Preserve and Encourage Radio, Drama, Variety, and Comedy, that we were members of years ago. I don't know if they still exist. They probably do, though probably all their members are now on dialysis or whatever. But the
no, they are, Mark. They still exist.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, that's good.
I see them about 4 or 5 times a year at those readings at the other services.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, back when I joined it, you would they would mail you reel-to-reel audio tapes of old radio shows, and then you would have them for a month, and then you'd mail them back. And now, of course, you don't even have cassettes. I mean, basically now you have like downloadable content.
But you get to go to their meetings, and there'd be great radio voices reading.
Oh yeah,
wonderful things.
Well, Peggy Weber was terrific. Norman Corwin was, of course, the great writer of radio, and he was a dear friend. He made it to 101.
And they had amazing latitude. Like what they would do. Sometimes they'd come up short on how long their show was, and they would make up commercials.
Well, yeah, that was on Vic and Sade.
On Vic and Sade, and they made up one commercial where they were selling underwear, and the joke was, well, how could you know the size if you're mail in underwear? They say, oh well, you partially fill up a bathtub, and you make a mark
on the tub of the level of the water, and
then you sit in the tub and you make another mark, and then you mail them the bathtub.
That's great.
And that's how you know what size underwear you have.
There was another joke they had that the network wouldn't let them put on the air, because the writer of Vic and Sade was actually speaking at SPURDVAC years ago, and the gag was, it was bacon. It was a new company selling bacon, and the way they did it was they wanted to be more compassionate, and so they would anesthetize the pig, cut off a hunk of bacon, sew it back up, let it heal, grow back the bacon, and then they would anesthetize it again, and that way they could have like this endless supply of bacon from the pig, and the pig wouldn't be killed. And the network just said, are you fucking out of your minds? We're not going to put this on the air, But see, the great thing about when we were members of SPURDVAC was that this is back in like the late 70s, early 80s, when a lot of those old radio people are still around. Stan Freberg is another one of the greats, and it was phenomenal to go and meet those people in person. Carlton Morse, who wrote I Love a Mystery and created that show, phenomenal people. And we were very lucky, because most of them, almost all of them, are dead now. Very, very, very few of them are still alive. And so we were very lucky. And of course, one of the great radio shows is Jack Benny. I absolutely adore the Jack Benny show, and a phenomenal cast. If you've never heard Jack Benny, definitely go online and check it out, particularly the shows from the 40s and the 50s. Those shows are still very, 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 very funny, and everyone on the show is great. So they all have shtick that they do, and it's a great show. So let's see.
And I should also mention, for you Disney files out there, Paul Frees, another thing he did was the voice of the Haunted Mansion, the ghost host.
Yes. Ooh, yes. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yes, David. What were you going to say?
When I was meeting with the SPURDVAC people and seeing them, Phil Proctor from the Fireside Theater used to come, and he would do readings too as well.
Yes.
He's besides being a legend of comedy, he's such a very nice person. He's really, really fun to work with. I got to direct him a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing to have when all 4 of the Fireside Theater were alive, and you'd have them appear at conventions and do live readings and things. And my gosh, they were so great. I love the Fireside Theater.
Yeah, they were driving. I remember, we're sitting there, and they were doing a thing where the detective was driving through a rainstorm at night, and they were going.
Yes, they were miming the windshield wiper. It was very, very funny.
Perfect,
and that Nick Danger, Third Eye. So yes, so let's see now. Oh yeah, all that stuff is great. So Karen McKenna, I guess you're next.
Hi everybody. I'm just saying hello, and was just going to watch, but then I heard Carol talking about Bette Midler. And I wanted to throw in a story, because we worked with her on Isn't She Great in the 90s with Nathan Lane.
Great.
And I can tell you that she is indeed an extremely hard worker and a perfectionist extraordinaire. And she would literally stop the set. There was one of the first days, Nathan Lane has kind of a chubby neck, and he kept pulling at his collar.
Mhm.
And she was like, "What's the matter with you? Why do you keep pulling at your shirt?" He's like, "I don't know, it's a little tight." She stopped the set and made the costume people take off his shirt and change his shirt. Because he was pulling at his collar and it was bothering her.
Really?
Many people on the set used the D word, and I mean diva,
Mhm.
about her, but I will also say that she was tremendously down to earth as well. I mean, I can also remember her literally going in the costume trailer and ironing something herself.
Yes.
Because she was not satisfied with the way it looked, and she would just go and do it. And also, she was just really a sweet person as well. I mean, I have to say, she's a very hard worker and a hard ass, a hard, tough boss.
That's
and
fun.
She wants things the way she wants them, and she wants them right.
Wow.
And you know, it's hard as a woman in this business to pull that off
Mhm.
and still be likable.
Wow.
But part of the reason was because, I mean, I can remember many times when there would be like a whole bunch of PAs traveling in a van somewhere, and they would say, "Well, you know, wait, Miss Midler, we'll send a car for you." And she'd be like, "What? I'll go with them." Just jump in the van, and she was that kind of person. She wanted to get things done. She wanted them the way she wanted them.
That's
so,
great.
Carol, if you're still on, you're absolutely correct. If she's a great role model, if you want to have hard work, dedication, perfectionism, and also be a woman of the people.
Yes.
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 I agree, and thank you for your email also, Karen.
Yeah. That's
I
great.
loved what you said. Wasn't what she said last week great?
Yes.
What a great reading. I still think of it. Like I said to you, the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd.
Yeah.
It brought back New York and so many things. So evocative. Such
Great.
an evocative piece.
And is there? Oh, go on. Is there anything else you need, Karen?
Like I said, I wasn't even planning to really pop on. I was just listening, so I'm pretty good.
Cool.
But I'm glad you guys look nice and rested. I hope you had a nice vacation.
Thank you.
And basically just saying hi to everybody.
Hi, good to see you. And also, one thing I'll mention in that regard, today for some reason, because I was running errands and so forth, I was watching Dick Cavett interviewing Janis Joplin, and that's remarkable. They had a real rapport, and they clearly really like each other, and she's very articulate and very interesting, and I highly recommend checking that out on YouTube because it's really remarkable.
We've got a picture of her on our wall.
Yeah, we have a painting of her on our wall, and Jim.
I'm gonna look. She's one of my favorites.
She's great, and Jim Metropole, who's one of the table members, he actually photographed Janis Joplin back when he was a rock photographer. So, have you ever seen Mike? Have you ever seen any of Jim's photos of Janis Joplin? Because I know he photographed her.
Yes, I have. He shows them to me all the time.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love.
He's got all of his pictures in like 5 or 6 drawers.
Wow.
And he's filled dozens of albums of all the people he's ever photographed.
Wow.
Neil Diamond and all these
Oh, how fun.
associations.
Wow.
That's great.
So,
That's
yeah,
great.
I've seen it all.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see some of the Janis Joplin photos sometime.
Is he on the table?
He's also got Morgan Fairchild before Morgan was Morgan.
Wow, that's great.
It's just interesting photos, and he tells me the stories about the photo shoots
That's
that he
great.
had with the particular people.
That's really fun. And what were you asking, Karen?
Is he on the table? Is he on the table email?
He sure is.
Yeah. Yes.
He's been on the table longer than Mark and Elaine.
Ha 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 ha. Nope.
No, but
Nope.
close too.
Yeah, exactly. So great, and but yeah, I'd love to see his Janis Joplin photo sometime. So, and I actually have Jim gave me the photo he took of Orson Welles. It's on the wall over there, and it's
Orson was drunk.
Yeah,
smoking a cigar.
Well, there you go, a Hollywood legend. Great. Well, 3 cheers! Yay! So, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have another question from Wilhelm Sowers.
Hi, Wilhelm.
We were talking about Klingons earlier.
Yes.
How did the Romulans come about?
Yes. Well, I mean, sometimes, Star Trek was really an amazing show, the original series, and week after week there were these phenomenal episodes. And the Romulans, they basically did an episode called Balance of Terror, and it's basically a ripoff of The Enemy Below, which is a submarine movie with a battle of wits between an American submarine commander and a German. And so it's basically a science fiction version of that. And they just decided to create characters who were sort of like the Roman Empire and also sort of like Vulcans also. And Mark Leonard played the captain of that ship. It's a really good episode. But that was sort of the idea, was that they had honor, and their ranks were included centurion. So it was very much, I mean, I think a lot of the writers who were working on Star Trek, some were real science fiction writers like Ted Sturgeon or Harlan, but others were probably TV writers who weren't that knowledgeable about science fiction. So they'd be doing sort of a shorthand where they look for some historical and analogy or whatever, and cobble it together from that. So that's how those characters came about. But then they went on to be in shows like in episodes like the Enterprise Incident and so forth, and they started building on who and what the Romulans were. It's taken a little bit of a left turn recently. I don't particularly like what they've done with the Romulans in Picard, but that's how they came about. Mark Leonard, actually, interestingly enough, he played a Romulan, and then he played Spock's father, so he played a Vulcan, and then he was the Klingon, the first Klingon that we see in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So he played a Klingon. So he actually played the 3 major species in Star Trek. So Mark Leonard was a terrific actor, and I met him. He and Walter Koenig did a play where they played Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn as adults, and I was there for that performance, and it was great to see them. And Mark Leonard was a phenomenal actor, and we lost him way too early. And so that episode, the first episode, Balance of Terror, it's really fun, and I recommend it. It's a good one. And so there you go. And let's see, Gino, I guess you're next. Go for it. If you can unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yep. Hi, folks. Okay, there's a few people on here I haven't seen before, so I'm going to do my deal.
Sure.
Hi, Gino. Filmmaker, actor, comedian. Okay. I'm available for table reads. I see John went off. We connected last week, so I'm going to be working on his table read with him. And so I'm available for table reads. And if you're casting something and I fit the specifications for any particular character, I'd love to read for you. Wow, that's it on that, and I really don't have anything pressing. But one thing that you probably do, you might know this, Elaine. I'd love to get a hold of some of the call sheets, the Twilight Zone episodes, specifically Spur of the Moment. I Googled it before coming on, and they had one on there.
Does anyone know about the call? When Mark comes back, we'll ask him about the call sheets. I don't think he's got access to those, but Mark?
Yes.
Gino was wondering if he wanted to get hold of a call sheet from Twilight Zone.
That's challenging. I mean, what are you looking for, Gino? Why do you want that?
Just no specific reasons. Like I've always loved it, just intrigued, and at one point I had 7 or all of them on my DVR.
Mm-hmm.
One that I've been watching a lot recently is Spur of the Moment. I just love
that
one.
That's the original title on that was Pale Rider. Interestingly enough, Matheson wrote that episode, of course. I in my files I probably have some call sheets. I'd have to go through that stuff and see. Years ago, I sent a whole bunch of stuff back to Carol Serling, so my files are not what they once were. But yeah, I mean, the fun part about all that stuff was that Twilight Zone shot at Metro Goldwyn Mayer, and they had access to all the costumes, props, and sets ever used in any MGM TV show or movie, and so that was phenomenal. And in fact, the spacesuit behind me was used in a Twilight Zone episode called The Parallel. It was one of the hour-long ones, and it's also a real one. It's a Navy high-altitude suit, but it was just, and I've had that spacesuit since I was 12. But it's it's amazing. And I was mentioning, I think before you were on the screen, that I just bought a spacesuit that was used in an episode of Twilight Zone called Death Ship. Just the spacesuit, not the helmet. But it's cool stuff. You know, I mean, the Twilight Zone really, really, really holds up. It's a great show. And, you know, it's funny because it had 5 seasons, and the 4th season, it was 18-hour-long episodes, and then it went back to a half hour for the final, the 5th and final season. But every season had great episodes. And, you know, so Spur of the Moment was a 5th season episode, but still fun. And Matheson wrote many great episodes of The Twilight Zone, Richard Matheson. And, you know, he was just a phenomenal writer. He also wrote I Am Legend, you know, the novel that was made into 3 versions of the film, and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, he was a great guy, amazing guy.
Okay. And as you're saying all that, one thing on Spur of the Moment, do you know where that mansion is or was that they shot it at, as well as those hills?
No, I don't remember. I mean, everything they shot, for the most part, was in and around Los Angeles, except for every now and then, like, for instance, there's an episode called The Lonely that was shot in Death Valley until it got too hot, and then they went back to Metro to shoot the rest of it. They shot some stuff in Lone Pine, but they tried not to go on location moves if they could avoid it. You know, and the backlot of MGM at that time was so astonishing. I mean, there's a book that came out some years ago on all the stuff that was on the backlot of MGM. MGM was the greatest studio of all time, basically. They had everything. And, you know, and Twilight Zone used a ton of stuff from Forbidden Planet. Okay, yeah. And
Sorry, dog again.
she's going to walk the dog. But yeah, so, but the backlot, I was there when I was a kid. When I was 13 years old, they had the MGM auction where they auctioned off everything and then plowed over the backlot to build condos to finance the MGM Grand in Vegas. The construction of that, really a shame. But I went. My mom bought the catalogs, and I was able to go. They had a preview prior to the auction where you could just walk through MGM and go and see. It was just astonishing. I mean, like, for instance, one whole room was just Roman armor, you know, and I saw the Witch's Hourglass from Wizard of Oz, and just these amazing things. It was phenomenal. And then I snuck behind the gate and went onto the back lot, and there was actually a building where it had a fake facade of brick, and I actually peeled a little piece of that away, and I've still got it over there. But you know, so I mean, you know, and this is when I was 13 years old, long before I ever came up with the idea of writing the Twilight Zone Companion. I wrote the Twilight Zone Companion. It took 5 years. I started it when I was 21, and it's been in print ever since. It's sold 500,000 copies. And for those who don't know, I'm the world's expert on the Twilight Zone. I'm kind of freakish in that way, and I've basically written and/or produced all of the home video versions of the Twilight Zone. If you ever want to hear me talk for 30 hours, buy the Blu-ray. And because I did 52 commentaries, I still have 104 to go. Someday I'll get around to those. And you know, because it's
probably some to revise.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear him only talk for an hour, just check out the screen for him.
Yes. But the fun part about doing those audio commentaries was that initially when I did the first few, I you know, got the writers like George Clayton Johnson and Matheson to sit down, Richard Donner, who was one of the directors, to sit down and do commentaries. But then I had this idea, because as more of them were dying off, I thought, well, there's a whole generation of showrunners and writers who were hugely inspired by Twilight Zone. So then I got Neil Gaiman or Matt Weiner, who created Mad Men, and we'd sit down and just do commentaries on a couple of episodes. So we'd watch the episode, and then we'd roll it again and do the commentary. And of course, I had lots of notes in prep. And those were amazing conversations. For instance, many people do not know that Neil Gaiman is Jewish. And a lot of people don't know that Rod Serling was. And I'm Jewish, of course, too. So there's a great episode about the Holocaust that Rod wrote called Death's Head Revisited. And so Neil and I did a commentary about that, about the Jewish identity as a writer, and about that episode being just a spectacular piece on the Holocaust. And, you know, a lot of people also don't know that Rod was really short. He was like 5'5", and wore what were called elevator shoes to make him a little taller. And but people were always amazed at how short he was when they met him. So that was pretty fun. And yeah, so there's some of it. But yeah, we can definitely talk Twilight Zone anytime you want. And so anything else you need, Gino?
No.
Okay.
Now, thanks, Mark.
Cool. 3 cheers. Yay.
I look at Ellison.
Yeah, but cool. But just one last thing about the Twilight Zone Blu-ray set. Fortunately, I was able to get George Clayton Johnson to do commentaries on all of his the episodes he wrote teleplays of on Twilight Zone, and I got Matheson on a lot of his, and so I got there they are. Dave has them, and so it was really an honor to be able to do the commentaries with so many people who were writers and directors and producers and actors on Twilight Zone. Really, really phenomenal. So great. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Dave, can you send those to me?
Well, there was another sci-fi question, but you happened to kill two birds
with one stone.
Talking about the Romulans. Because Robbie Riley had a question about the Balance of Terror episode, but you already answered that. So very good.
And many of us really love that first Romulan bird of prey. It is such a simple design. It has this bird painting underneath on the underside of it, and it's a very simple design, but a wonderful design and very evocative. And it's just a great episode. The helmets were great. When we did World Enough in Time, it had Romulan ships in it, and we actually remade those helmets, those Romulan helmets, for our cast, the cast members who played Romulans, and so it was really fun to be able to see those in person. It was really great fun. So great.
I will say, Mark Lungo mentioned Romulans were Centurions, so why didn't they say Power Extreme?
And Mark's making an in-joke because I also wrote for the Centurions, which was an animated show, and so my friend Ted Peterson was story editor on that show. He was a great guy. So okay, so John M., you're up. Go for it.
Hey, Mark.
Hi. I
didn't expect to be called. I just stopped by to hear your wonderful optimism and see the lovely Elaine.
Yes.
You guys have been they were such a help to me. Elaine mentored me in writing, and you're just very always optimistic. I never see you down.
Elaine does. I mean, but definitely, my mom was very optimistic and very positive, and I was raised by my mom, thank God, because my father was a very dark spirit, and but I also have very much a sense of being a beacon, and it's sort of like the energy that I put out to the world. I want it to be a positive energy and a hopeful energy, and and the table, of course, represents the kind of Hollywood I want to be part of and want to encourage. So but thank you for those comments, John. And of course, when you mentioned Elaine, it was our birthdays of last week. We went away, but my Elaine's birthday is August 21st, and mine is August 25th, and we combine our ages, so we're 140. And we went to Morro Bay for a few days. It was very nice.
Well, I love you guys. You're really a cute couple. I've written a couple more screenplays.
Oh, great!
Since Elaine mentored me.
Yes.
I'm just in the process of completing them right now. I haven't set up a template. I did learn some tricks. One of them is to write the theme of the film I'm writing and put it below my screen.
Yes, that's a good idea.
You've taught that in
Yes. What you try to do is you try and figure out what the theme of your piece is in a single sentence, and that can change as you write the project. But then you keep that in front of you as you're writing, because then you can say, am I going off topic? Am I, for instance, on the third Magic Time novel, the one I came up with was, in order to pick up what you need, you have to put down what you're carrying. And so that was very powerful, and it worked as a metaphor for me. And yes, because a lot of times people are writing along and they have no idea what the point is. And so you have these aimless, messes just because people aren't clear what they're trying to say. And so that's a very good technique. Yes.
And I also got from you helping other people.
Oh, I'm sorry. What, David?
There's a great thing about Paddy Chayefsky. He did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He used to write the theme of his, and he would stick it on a piece of paper on his typewriter. He said it prevented any ideas that weren't that from making it to the page.
Yes, that's true. And Ray Bradbury had a sign over his typewriter that I have on my computer now, which says, "Don't think, do." And I like that one too. But go ahead, please, John.
Oh, no, and a couple other things I got from you, which is to help other people. And I mentioned this one guy. One guy brought a DVD to me about a slasher film that he'd shot 4 years ago in Texas, and I looked at it, and there were no exteriors, and I had to keep stopping and saying, "Where are we, and what is the story?" So I took that, and he was financed by this woman in Texas, and I wrote 7 pages, and I said, pitch this to her, and I sent him back there to shoot a bunch of establishing shots. He shot them. He came back. We shot for $1,000. We got a cheap stage in Burbank, and we shot there.
Great.
And we completed the film. I figured it was every time I got lost, I said, okay, you're being interviewed by a lawyer. You're going to tell the lawyer what's happening here in the scene. And then we cut to the scene.
Wow.
And we actually got distribution, and it was released last August. Big Top Evil.
That's great. Congratulations. That's great.
And yeah, I got writing and second unit directing credit and editing credit on that. It's just a fun little thing.
Yeah.
I didn't get money from that.
But that's
It
great.
was a blast. And another guy I helped out was shooting a film for those people that do the Sharknadoes.
Yes.
And he gave me the script. He said, pick out a part. And I picked out a part. And he goes, no, Eric Roberts getting that part. So I picked out another one. He goes, okay, you got it. And I shot for 8 hours of the set. I only got $150, but I'm throughout the film.
That's great. That's really fun. That's really fun.
But I attribute that to you, Mark.
Thanks.
You for your encouragement and your uplifting spirit.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much, John. I appreciate it. And again, the whole point of the table and the whole point of what we do is to help people make stuff, because it's not about a great idea that never reaches an audience. It's not about any of this stuff other than creating something that reaches an audience and ideally is from your heart and is meaningful to you and entertaining an audience and moving them. So, you know, and the lovely thing about my whole attitude toward all of this is it doesn't have to be deeply profound. It doesn't have to be an Ingmar Bergman movie. It can be. But also, you know, there's a wonderful film called Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, which is a satire on 1950s science fiction films. And it's a great film, and it's totally goofy and hugely entertaining. But you can tell, I mean, the people who made it loved what they were doing, and it shows. And so, again, you know, it's not, there's a lot of different ways to do work that's meaningful. And I'm very, very glad about that. And it's funny because, you know, for 20 years, I never told people I'd written for animation because I'd made the jump to live action with all the live action shows I was doing. And then I was at the Paley Center, and I was watching some it's the Museum of Radio and Television, and I was hearing the young people behind the counter who were working there talk about how much they loved Smurfs and He-Man and all this stuff. And I walked up to them and I said, you know, I wrote for Smurfs and He-Man, and, you know, and their eyes went wide. It was like, you did? It was like I was, you know, coming down from the mountain or something. And, you know, so then I started telling people about all my animation credits. Yeah, there's the Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. Dave is holding it up. So it's a great film. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. It's really wonderful. And
the director said this, I don't know, cost about $40,000, and it was done on mini DV tape.
Yes, exactly. But it works. It's black and white, and it's really funny, really funny.
It's the best of his films.
Yes, it is. It is. And sadly, it's a shame, some people sort of hit the note once and then can't really build a body of work that sustains at that quality, whereas other people like Guillermo del Toro can. You know, they can knock it out of the park again and again. So it's, you know, whatever. But great. So anything else, John? Anything else you need?
No, that's it. I just wanted to tune in and get some
great
uplifting from you.
Great. Well, 3 cheers. Yay. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a question from, it's like, do we have one? Yes, we do. From Anonymous Bosch, who asks, which of the I Am Legend movie adaptations is the best?
That's a very interesting question. For those, okay, just to put it in perspective, and I've got the first edition of I Am Legend signed by Matheson. And it was a paperback. The first edition was a paperback. At some point I'll go over there and bring it back and show you guys. But the novel is basically about a guy where a disease has turned everyone else in the world into essentially vampires, and he's the last human. And he's a biochemist, and he's trying to come up with a cure for it and so forth. But he's going around killing these guys, and the whole idea was that ultimately it turns out that he's the monster, because they and so forth. That what a vampire would have been to us, preying on us, he's that to them. And it's a very good novel. Matheson came up with really a lot of great ideas. He was really an idea guy. And so the first version was called Last Man on Earth. It was made in the 60s, and it starred Vincent Price, and it was shot in Italy, and it's kind of very funky. But they've just released like a colorized version of it that you can watch on YouTube. It's adequate, not great. But actually, I Am Legend inspired George Romero to do Night of the Living Dead. So in a way, that's also inspired by that book, and it's a terrific film. If you've never seen Night of the Living Dead, it's absolutely wonderful. But then Charlton Heston did
Mark,
Yes?
Night of the Living Dead, I saw when I was 14, and I was so scared I left the theater.
Yes.
That film affected me, and it's an amazing film. All black and white, very stark, almost no sound effects.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a great film. And then in the 1970s, Charlton Heston.
Let's see how he reacts to this. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yes.
Hey, Mark, bring it all around. You
Yes.
just brought up the Mr. Rogers picture.
Yes.
George Romero was working for Mr. Rogers while he was making that movie.
Well, that explains a lot. So, but then in the 1970s, in the late 60s and early 70s, Charlton Heston did a triumvirate of great science fiction movies: Planet of the Apes, The Omega Man, and Soylent Green. And I highly recommend all three of those. They're terrific. Omega Man is great. It's got some things that are extremely funky. So it's like you have to really watch it with that in mind. Anthony Zerbe's in it, who's an actor that I've always loved. And but it's really a cool film in its way. I Am Legend, the third version of it was with Will Smith, of course. It was a big budget film. And the interesting thing about that was the original version of the movie had a completely different ending that followed the structure of the book. And it's much, much, much better. But when they tested it, the audience hated it. So they reshot the entire end of the movie to have it be more of a quote unquote happy ending. And so don't watch that version. Get the DVD or the Blu-ray and watch the alternate version that has the original ending, because it's a far superior movie. And so I think of all of those versions, excluding Night of the Living Dead, which of course is the great one of all those, I Am Legend with the original ending, the Will Smith one, is probably the best of all of them. But I think the one that I love the most is Omega Man, because it came out when I was a teenager, and you love your first loves of those things. So but so that's the
Mark, one thing I love about Omega Man, because it came out when I was a little younger than a teenager, but it starts out with him going through the streets trying desperately to do something, you don't know what it is.
Yes.
And he's going and going and going, and there's all these crazy things attacking him or chasing him. You're not sure what they are, because none of it's explained. And then he opens this door into this underground kind of Batcave thing that he's manufactured, and it's got several layers of doors, and there's something snuck in. He gets that one taken out, and he goes up, and he's inside this tower of an apartment, and it's all designed with his favorite things and his stereo and his paintings and everything. He's completely protected and safe because he's by himself. I was like, this doesn't look too bad to me. I mean, it was really cool what he was doing,
Well, one thing also,
the rest of the world was gone and turned into these white-faced creatures chasing him was sort of irrelevant because he really had a handle on it.
Yeah.
And it was like the coolest bachelor pad ever.
Well, one thing that's really fun is the opening of the film where he's driving in an open convertible, wearing sunglasses through an empty downtown LA, and then suddenly he stops. He pulls out a machine gun and starts firing at a window as these characters dart past. And I believe the rifle he was using was one of the weapons that Thrush used in Man from U.N.C.L.E. I believe it's the same gun.
Wow.
But it's fun stuff.
It's a classic ending. I mean, that movie's really it's worth seeing. It's pretty cheesy and pretty awesome at the same time.
Exactly, as is Soylent Green. Soylent Green is a great movie, and ironically, with Soylent Green, and you know this as well as I do, Mark Gushowitz, is Edward G. Robinson was supposed to be Dr. Zaius in Planet of the Apes, and in fact, they have screen tests of him playing that role. But then he fell ill and he wasn't able to do the role. So then he played the second lead in Soylent Green with us a couple years later in '72, I think it was, with Charlton Heston, and that was his last role, and he's terrific in it, absolutely terrific. And so I highly recommend that as well. So now we go to, there was Joe. Is he still on, or did he check out? Did we lose Joe? I think we
I
did.
think Joe is still
There he
here.
is. Joe, hi, there you are. It's your turn, Joe. Go for it.
I am still here.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
Good.
Joe Shapiro, and I'm a director editor,
Mhm.
and my offer is I've got plenty of time on my hands.
Wow.
And,
Go for it.
as many people do, I guess.
Yes.
So I love being on set. I've done most of the positions, and I can edit as well. So that's my offer.
Great.
And then my ask is I'm looking for a writer collaborator, somebody who's interested in like actually making indie film rather than just selling something. And my wheelhouse, what I'm most interested in is things like Stranger Than Fiction, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yes. Yes.
Kind of surreal relationship dramedies, I guess you might say.
That's cool.
Yesterday is another example, or About Time.
Yes. Yes. That's great. Well, terrific. Well, you can absolutely.
That's about it.
You can absolutely. Put
And
that,
I've had 2 films as editor. I've had 2 features at Sundance and 1 at Cannes.
Oh wow, that's great. Additionally, you can put out that request to the table email, and it'll go out to all several thousand members. I'm sure people will have things that would work for that. Another great source for that kind of thing is science fiction short stories, because whereas acquiring a novel can be very expensive, particularly if it's a bestseller, short stories can be acquired for a lot less money generally. And so there's a lot of great stories. A writer who's particularly good with sort of those, there's two science fiction writers who are great with those sort of like what is reality notions. One is Robert Sheckley. He wrote a lot of great stories along those lines in the 50s. And the other, of course, is Philip K. Dick, who was always,
I think his IP is probably spoken for.
Yes, yes. But Robert Sheckley is well worth checking out. He's an amazing writer, particularly the short stories he did in the 50s. X-1 did a number of radio adaptations of those stories, and they are quite wonderful. So,
have you ever read The Willows?
Oh, that's a horror story. That's different.
No.
Yeah, but go ahead. The Willows is just a very creepy story.
Well, it's just it builds so slowly. It's just 2 people on an it's two people on an island.
I don't know. It's probably
it's where the waters have risen. And like there are little inlets that appear and disappear. It seems very like normal kind of thing. And there's all this. So they land on this island, a river in England, and the earth keeps shifting, but it's the way it creeps up, and there's all these bushes, and very, very, very slowly, you realize that the bushes are alive.
Yeah,
and it's just very slow, and it just kind of like saturates you. It's one of the best I've read in terms of being engaging.
Yes,
but it's called. But you might want to look
The
into
Willows.
The Willows because the effect is so subtle.
Yes,
and because it's these things, and you're not sure what you're hearing or seeing, and then they had there was something odd around their boat, and then they went to their boat, and there's a very, and they said, oh, it looks all right, but then they see there was a very slim cut all along the center of the boat, which when they first went out in the river would have swollen, and they would have thought they were okay until they got into the rapids, and then it would have opened up and they would have drowned.
Yes.
And so but it's like just there's something menacing them, but it's not like anything you've ever seen. So in terms of, as a director, in terms of this creepy build, that's not that expensive to shoot, you might want to look at it. It's one of the creepiest things I've read.
Yeah, and another. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other thing I should mention is that, and this makes it harder, is that I'm looking for something that's ultimately optimistic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's
well,
fine.
No, it's interesting.
Thing,
There's again, put out the word, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of interesting stuff. One writer that I was going to mention, though he's not optimistic, is a writer named M.R. James, who wrote great British ghost stories. He was like a professor, a college professor, and then every year he'd write these amazing ghost stories, and they're really wonderful, really, really wonderful. The Mezzotint and Casting the Ruins and all sorts of stuff. Really, really fun, really fun. So, but anything else, Joe?
No, I think that's it.
Yay!
And I'll probably be talking to your to your Space Command
Yes.
folks, because I have time.
Great. Well, David, David Bartlett is the
That
point
would be
person.
me.
Yeah, so definitely reach out to David. And
Do you like painting?
How about woodworking?
Yay.
Seriously,
Yes.
I have a bunch of carpentry to do.
Yes.
I'm pretty good at that. So.
Now is the time. Awesome. Let's
Yeah.
talk.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Excellent.
Cool.
And if anyone wants to haul a massage chair, a recliner down to the studio, that's another thing we're circling around. So okay, great. So Adam, is there another Mr.
Don't
Sci-Fi?
go there.
Adam,
I
is
don't
there?
think it would fit in my Prius.
Yes,
but,
Adam, is
we
there?
do have, we've got a lot of questions actually.
Sure.
So I'm gonna narrow it down.
Sure.
And we'll go with someone who hasn't got to ask a question.
Cool.
Yet. Dr. Essex.
Huh.
Who says, how do you predict the seeping of plot, so to speak, now that we're watching alone?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by seeping. You might need to elaborate on that. Do you get it, or
No.
I think you just need to elaborate on what you're meaning. I think that what we are seeing, of course, is that as people are watching more and more content, it starts to all kind of blur together, and you start to see that there's very few things that are original. I mean, that are fresh. And we're going to watch that new Ridley Scott show with androids and see how that is. Raised by Wolves, it's called. But
the review was not.
Yeah, but Space Command is definitely the thing to watch. I mean, it's I think we got 97% thumbs up and over 1 million views, and so that's very, very good. And if everyone gave us $1, we'd be in good shape. But yeah.
And if you have one of those little Men in Black things that erases the memory, it's really great because you can watch it over and over again and think you got the season already.
Yes. Well, one problem.
See it for the first time.
Well, one problem I have with series where they drop all the episodes at once is I'll watch the show, I'll watch that season, and then it's like a year or more before they have the next season, and by then you don't remember who the characters are, or what the plot was, or what the relationships are. And it's like, you really don't want to watch the first season all over again, but it's kind of like, it's problematical. I mean, I have that problem with a show called The Boys, which is about these evil superheroes. And it's not a bad show, but again, it's like all the twists and turns, who remembers, who cares? So I think we've done, so now I think it's Elaine's turn. It's your turn, Elaine. Go for it.
What about Rudy?
Rudy the dog, yes. Go for it, Elaine. It's your turn.
Yeah, well, the best news is that my hair salon is open. And I'm finally going to get rid of some of this tomorrow morning. So
Yes.
that's good news.
Yes.
And just, in addition to Space Command, working along on a thing called Harbor, which Mark described as Fantasy Island, but it's not really Fantasy Island.
Right.
It's a place about second chances and the challenges of second chances, where we think we want one, but they're very, very hard to take. It's not just if you remove all of the things that stop us, that are physically around us, and you see what's stopping you inside yourself. That's what this show is about. It's about being able to allow yourself a second chance, allow yourself change, and how difficult that is. And it's not just always about the surrounding and what's around us. It's about what's within us. So that's what the show. That's what the show focuses on. So I wrote a really quick and dirty draft a long time ago, and then Mark got somebody interested in it. God bless him. And so I thought, okay, I'll do a quick rewrite, and it's really hard because it was a quick and dirty, the first draft, with a good concept. So, and some decent characters. But now I'm plowing down, so I should be done in just a few days, and we'll get it out there and see what happens. So,
Yay.
So that's pretty much me. Yeah.
Cool. Yay, Elaine. 3 cheers. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yeah, let's do another Mr. Sci-Fi question.
Cool.
Here's what I really wanted to do. Not that one. There it is. From Robbie Riley, who says, Agatha Christie said she liked to write 2 novels at the same time.
Yes.
So when she got bored or stuck on one, she'd switch to the other.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on writing several projects at once?
The way if you have too many projects on your plate is that none of them are actually ever getting finished. So that's where I mean, Elaine and I came up in television, so we're very good at multitasking. On any given day, we're often working on multiple projects, and it's not really a problem. The hardest thing I ever did, I think, in my career was there was one period, I think, of 3 months where I wrote 9 scripts for 6 different series, and I was able to stagger them. So on a given week, I'd be writing the outline for one and the script of another. But there was one week where 2 shows needed that script by the end of the week, and I had to write 2 teleplays, 2-hour teleplays for 2 different shows in 1 week. And the way I did it, one was Forever Night, and the other was a show called Space Precinct, a British show. And so
This was before spell check.
yes. And so the way I did it was, I wrote 10 pages in the morning of one of them, then I would have lunch to clear my head, and then I wrote 10 pages the other in the afternoon, and I wrote for 6 days straight, and at the end of those 6 days, I had 2 60-page scripts. And both got made, and you can watch both of them if you seek them out. And but I think I burnt out brain cells doing that. And the fastest I ever had to write was I wrote an episode. I think it was Black Star or He-Man something, and I wrote 55 pages in 1 day. That was an entire script, and I would handwrite it, and Elaine would type it because she was a faster typist. And this is before computers, and that was certainly an amazing feat. So, but nowadays we're often multitasking. But the thing is, you have to make sure anytime you're a professional, you find what works for you. So, for instance, Ray Bradbury, for many, many years, the way he would work is he would sit down on a Monday, write an entire short story in one sitting. He would start with like a word association for a title like The Lake or the Pedestrian. And then he'd write a short story in one sitting. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, he would polish it. And then Friday, he would mail it to his agent in New York. And he would write 50 short stories a year and then have a 2-week vacation. And he did that year after year after year after year. And that's what worked for him. Though often he would have like a fragment of something or like unfinished things that he would return to. You know, again, it wasn't a perfect system, but you absolutely have to make sure you're finishing it. And if you're a professional, you have to make sure it's getting sold and made, you know, and that's why I chose TV. Because again, of all the scripts I've written, almost all of them have gotten made. Maybe 98% of the scripts I've written have gotten made and aired.
The only thing you have to be careful of as a writer is that depending on how you write, that you don't become facile and you try and write too quickly to get deeply into character.
Yes. Well, that's the problem Rod had on Twilight Zone. He said by the 5th season, he had written so much that he said he felt like he was just writing, like writing bad Serling, a bad imitation of himself. And he'd say his scripts would sound like they were 2 Rod Serlings talking to each other because he dictated. And it was true. It was true. There's an episode called The Fear, where it's this man and this woman, 5th season Twilight Zone episode. And it really sounds like 2 Rod Serlings talking to each other. And again, it's a memorable episode. But yeah, he was definitely falling into his own cliches. So
yeah. So yeah, you have to know who you are as a writer. Truman Capote was kind of a neighbor of someone who had a next door. The other fellow would write, book after book after book. Someone forgotten now, but there was a party, and the fellow said to Truman Capote, he said, "I could write a chapter in how long it takes you to write a word." And Truman Capote said, "Yes, but it's the right word."
Yeah. So that's that.
And it's Capote who is remembered and not this other fellow who just ground it out.
Yes. There's another great Truman Capote story that he told, I think, on the Tonight Show or on Dick Cavett, where he was autographing at a bookstore, and a woman walked up and asked him to autograph her chest. So he did. He wrote Truman Capote on her chest. And then her husband, who was very, very offended by this, whipped out what he would whip out. And he said, "Well, how about signing this?" And Truman Capote looked at it and he said, "I don't think I could sign it, but I could initial it."
do it in Capote's voice. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But it was great. It was great. So, by the way, this is the first edition of I Am Legend. So there you go. It's really great. And Matheson told me that when he was young, he had blue eyes, he was handsome, and he had sort of light colored hair, and he was actually often mistaken, and he wasn't joking. He was often mistaken for Paul Newman. And so that's sort of what he looked like as a young man. Here's Here's Matheson, this young man. Many people know him as an older guy with a beard and mustache. In fact, the photo I took of him is in the Twilight Zone Companion, and you can see it in there. But when he was young, he was quite handsome. And he also fought in World War II. He wrote a book about that, a novel called The Beardless Warriors. So really a remarkable man. So, okay, so I guess now it's me, wonderful me, right? Yay, me, 3 cheers. A lot is happening. We got a tour of the studio with all the spaceship sets up and running. You can watch my video on Mr. Sci-Fi to see them. They're looking great. We're going to do a fog test and a lighting test, and we're starting to shoot scenes in the next few weeks, and it's exciting to get up and running. Also, many of you know I've sold a new book called Greenlighting Yourself that's about how you can make stuff happen. And so I'm writing it, and it's already sold. So I just have to finish it, and then it'll be published by Silman James, who publishes the Twilight Zone Companion, which is great. And then meantime, I also came up with Showrunners Network, another idea of mine, where I collaborate on 6 shows with 6 major showrunners, and then we shoot all 6 pilots, and we take them out as a slate of 6 shows. So I had a Zoom call with 2 of my partners yesterday, Rockney O'Bannon, who created Farscape, Defiance, Alien Nation, Sequest, and Cult, and he's now executive producer on Evil. And we've created a new show called Sweet Haven. And Mark Fergus, who he and his partner wrote Iron Man and Children of Men, and he developed The Expanse for television, and he and his partner are showrunners on that. So it was a great Zoom meeting. He's coming aboard on Fugitive Space, so he's in the second slot. And we were talking about, we're filling out the slate of 6, and there'll be a back 6 as well. So we're going to be doing a table read with our cast on Sweet Haven, and that includes Robert Picardo, Mira Furlan, Barbara Bain, Gates McFadden from Star Trek The Next Generation, Mike Harney from Orange is the New Black, Nana Visitor from DS9 is reading for one of the roles I've written for her. George Takei is reading the script for a role I've written for him. So it's going to be very, very cool. We're going to basically do a table read as a rehearsal, then a table read that we'll record and put out to the audience, and then we'll raise the money and shoot the pilot. And so it's a very, very, very good conversation. And then also there's a role in the Space Command episode we're going to be shooting that we need to cast, and an actress that I think would be great in that role is an actress named Kara G. And she plays a great character in The Expanse called Drummer, a very, very good character. And she's Native American or Native Canadian, and I think she's Ojibwe. And so I asked Mark Fergus if he could make an introduction. I could then have a Zoom call with her to see if she'd be open to playing the role. And I think she'll probably say yes. And that would be quite a coup to have her in Space Command as well. We have Francois Chow from The Expanse, and he's in the episode we just shot, but it continues. So I'm also looking at doing a potential Rod Serling project and a potential Ray Bradbury project. And Mark Fergus is interested in doing a Vonnegut project as part of the Showrunners Network. So I'm going to reach out to someone I know who was a pal of Vonnegut's and see if we can make that happen. So it's a pretty amazing time, and no complaints. And then of course I'm doing Mr. Sci-Fi, and I'm about to do the history of science fiction films of the 70s. So that's why Soylent Green and Omega Man were very much on my mind. And and then we'll just keep going. There's more and more and more to talk about and to do, and it's a phenomenal time. Thank God for all of us, and thank God for Zoom, which really is helping make life tolerable in many ways. And but that's where I am. It's things are really interesting, and the more people support Mr. Sci-Fi financially and Space Command financially, the quicker we can do stuff, and the more we can do. Meantime, Amazon.
And the
go ahead.
The less hair David Bartlett has to tear out.
Yes, and yes, and but also Amazon is actively considering several of our projects now, and it just continues. Phenomenal stuff. So that's about it for us right now. So anything anyone else needs? I think we've covered pretty much every. Oh, Kira, you weren't there. You just popped up. So let's have you do your turn, and then we can go to our various destinies. So go for it.
All right, so thanks for finding. I jumped in right now. And this is Akira. I'm film composer, and I'm living in Silver Lake, LA. And I'm writing for the mainly horror and suspense kind of stuff, and some rivalry in the films. And also I'm a guitar player and teaching guitar online, and I'm Japanese. I can speak Japanese much better than English. You know, I'm doing some language business, like teaching Japanese or translation for competition. And if you need some, you know, some issue about, you know, maybe translation from English Japanese or some other things, you know, maybe I can do that. If small things, you know, I can help you for free. You know, it doesn't matter to me anyway. And absolutely, what I'm looking for is a project, what I can work with. You know, and, you know, I have right now never seen no policy, but the whole lot of suspense kind of stuff is preferable. But if you need music, maybe, you know, just, you know, give me a shout. Maybe let me send you my link for my music, and just if you like it, you know, use me.
Great. Okay, cool. Cheers, Akira. So do we have any more Mr. Sci-Fi questions, and then we can head out and live our lives? Oh, you have to unmute, Adam. There we go.
You'd think I would remember that after all this time.
Yep.
But yeah, there was a question about H.P. Lovecraft from Mark Lungo, who says, all my friends like his stuff, but I'm not sure I want to get into him because of his bigotry, despairing philosophy. So he wants to know, should he even try to get into...
Yes. Lovecraft is a very interesting writer. His best stuff is unique and wonderful. He reads like a 19th century writer, although he wrote in the 20th century. He's very ornate, but his best stuff is well worth reading. At the Mountains of Madness is probably what I would recommend where to start. It's a great story. And Guillermo del Toro came very close to making a feature of it with James Cameron and Tom Cruise and Ron Perlman. But Lovecraft wrote so much and so quickly that at his worst, he's like a parody of himself. And so there's a lot of his work that's extremely poor. He was definitely a racist, but because of his fears under all that racial stuff and the miscegenation stuff, it just fuels the creepiness of his work. And it's interesting. There's a new show on HBO called Lovecraft Country, and it's about black characters in the Lovecraft mythos. And they were talking. It's a new show, and they were talking about how you deal with material that's racist, where it's a writer you love, but you recognize the negative, and it's like how you can then make it yours creatively, even being aware of and utilize the fact that there's the negative side too, making it overt rather than subtle. And so yes, there's a lot of problems with many of our writers. I mean, you know, writers who are misogynists, writers who are racist, writers who, you know, I mean, people talk about Picasso also being such a misogynist and so forth, and Hemingway, don't even get me started. But then you have to separate that out from their work. And if their work speaks to you, if you can learn from it and grow from it and be moved by it. I mean, like for instance, Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird is such a great novel and such a great movie. But then she unfortunately released the previous draft of that book called Go Tell a Watchman, and that was a very problematical piece that was overtly racist in its way. And you know, it's a shame she came out with that. She shouldn't have. But again, it was written before she wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, so one has to sort of say there was an evolution of her views.
Well,
and
also an editor.
Yes, a brilliant editor in New York. But again, you know, I mean, everyone's flawed. Everyone has their weaknesses. I mean, you know, you have to take the bitter with the sweet. But yes, I would highly recommend reading Lovecraft, particularly on the Mountains of Madness. Call of Cthulhu is very good. Color Out of Space is very good. And what's the one we were just listening to a reading of it? It was the one with the town and the water and all of that. I can't. All of his titles kind of blur together. They all sound alike, but those are some good ones. And at the Mountains of Madness, it's an interesting story because he wrote it there during this period in the 1920s/30s. It was a great period of Arctic and Antarctic exploration, and he was quite a devotee of that. And At the Mountains of Madness is about an Antarctic expedition, very well researched. And he had been publishing in Astounding Tales, and he submitted it to them assuming it would sell. But at the same time, John W. Campbell, who was the editor of Astounding, was writing his own Antarctic adventure called Who Goes There, about an alien that's dug up out of the ice and has the power to impersonate people. And they were not the same story, but similar enough, where John W. Campbell published his story and not Lovecraft's. It was many years before they actually published Lovecraft's story. It was, in fact, after his death. And so that was a very interesting... ironically, both of those are great. And Who Goes There was made into The Thing in the 1950s, the movie, and then remade as John Carpenter's The Thing, and that's a great film. That's one of my favorite films. So it's all very interesting history, and writers kind of like inspiring and influencing each other and being sort of in the same zeitgeist one way or another. So there's that. So, okay, great. Yes, Dave?
Also, by the way, I mentioned this before, but my friend Chris Lackey and his writing partner, Greek Johnson, have done a nice little 4.5-minute short based on Hickman's model.
Yes.
Called Hickman's Guest, which is available on YouTube.
Oh, fun.
So just look up Hickman's Guest. They also did From Beyond the Beyond a few years ago.
Cool.
So they're both very short, so check them out.
Yeah, there was also a very good Night Gallery episode of Hickman's Model with a really good monster suit that I believe was made by Janos Prohaska, who was one of the great creature guys and played the creatures that he modeled often. And it's really memorable. Additionally, there's a H.P. Lovecraft group that does audio plays of Lovecraft in the style of 1930s radio, and they're quite wonderful. So I highly recommend those.
What's the group that makes those movies?
Well, same group. They made a silent version of Call of Cthulhu about maybe 10 years ago, and that was really quite wonderful as well. So I can recommend that too. So
and the following one was they followed it up with a talkie, but I
it wasn't.
Which one it was.
It wasn't as good. I have it. It wasn't as good. Because a silent movie you can cover a lot of flaws, particularly in the acting, because the silent movies were a little more expressive and a little bigger, and it worked. But but Lovecraft is very difficult to adapt because again he's so lurid and so he's like Poe in that way. You have to really kind of hit a very specific note, and if you don't, you're screwed. So
that's why audio plays sometimes work better.
Yes, exactly. Well, speaking of Lovecraft adaptations on radio, there's actually an adaptation of the Dunwich Horror done for radio starring Ronald Colman. And so that's pretty phenomenal when you think about it. So that's I'm sure you can find that on YouTube, and it's really interesting. Very odd juxtaposition of styles, and but definitely worth checking out. And that's one thing we didn't mention when you talk about old radio. There were radio actors like the ones that were mentioned earlier, but there were also movie stars who would act on radio for like $5,000 per role, which was a huge amount back then. And so there was Lux Radio Theater and Suspense. There were a number of shows where you would have Cary Grant or Bette Davis or Peter Lorre or Vincent Price, all the great stars of Hollywood, Humphrey Bogart. And sometimes they would do radio adaptations of their movies, but other times it would be original radio plays written for radio. For instance, there's a great Twilight Zone episode called The Hitchhiker that stars Inger Stevens, but originally it was written by Lucille Fletcher for Mercury Theater on the Air when it was Campbell Playhouse, and it starred Orson Welles in what became the Inger Stevens role when Serling rewrote it. And Lucille Fletcher, just another weird thing, is she was the wife of Bernard Herrmann, who was the great composer who did Citizen Kane and North by Northwest and Vertigo and Taxi Driver and so forth. So there you go. So, okay.
One last thing on Lovecraft.
Yes.
This guy who I mentioned, these fellows also do the H.P. Lovecraft literary podcast.
Yes.
And they've got some things on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
They even do other things like they've got some Bram Stoker
Yes.
that they do, but they verge out into other
yeah.
areas. But
And the
really,
Lovecraft,
really good if I had time to listen.
Yeah, the Lovecraft podcast is great because they reviewed every single thing he wrote, and so they tell you which ones are good and which ones are bad. And additionally, not many people know that he actually wrote 2 stories. Ghost wrote 2 stories for Harry Houdini, and that's pretty interesting too. And so those are also worth checking out. So so there you go. So okay, great. Well, it's been another great evening as always. And I'll be posting a lot more of Mr. Sci-Fi. We'll be here with the table every Thursday night and the live stream. And thanks, guys. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a great evening and a great coming week, okay? Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Mark.